Chapter 371. After that, Black Zetsu also ignored the existence of Madara and looked at the Jubi's Jinchuriki Obito with strange eyes. "Waste, why don't you surrender?" Black Zetsu opened his big mouth full of fangs and said fiercely. That look in his eyes showed that he already regarded Obito as his prey. As for Obito's strength, he didn't care about it. Black Zetsu didn't talk nonsense. As the saying goes, things change after a long time. Regardless of Madara and Dustless, he chose to make the first move. His body instantly liquefied and rushed toward Obito like flowing water. "I don't care who you are, those who block my ambition, go to hell." Obito snorted and looked at Obito coldly without fear. He held the six-path monk's staff and gently pointed toward the void in front of him, and 9 black balls came out behind him. Truth-seeking ball is a perfect technique. It can attack and defend, and anything that touches it will be annihilated. Futile struggle. You're only using these few techniques. Useless trash. Black Zetsu calmly stared at the truth-seeking ball flying toward him, and his strange eyes flashed with contempt and strangeness. His liquefied body easily drilled into the depths of the ground. "I thought you had some means, but it turned out to be just a vase." Seeing Black Zetsu slip away, Obito spread out his majestic perception and took in all the movements within a few kilometers. However, the result that he got shocked him. There was no breath, no trace, as if he disappeared completely out of thin air. This guy is really not as simple as he looks. It seems to be a space ninjutsu that manipulates space, but he is obviously more skilled than Minato and Kakashi. Dustless frowned tightly when he saw this, and his mind became cautious. This strange technique is not so much a space ninjutsu. It is better to say that Black Zetsu at this moment is like the god of space, and he can tear the void according to his will. Even Wuchen was confused by the elusive tracks. "Waste, I will take everything from you now, and after waking up Mother, I will return to the world." A hoarse voice came from the void behind Obito. Immediately he saw that the void behind Obito had been distorted out of shape, and black liquid flowed out from it. The dark arms stretched out, pulsing with a mysterious swallowing light. It was like a black hole in the depths of the universe, capable of swallowing everything. Obito felt a palpitating power. This ugly black arm seemed to want to merge with him. Wheel grave, border prison. An unparalleled repulsion came head-on, and Black Zetsu's liquefied body suddenly broke apart, bursting like raindrops, splashing everywhere. "Hey, it's a bunch of naughty brats. As I said before, Kagaya's is immortal, and I'm the incarnation of Mother's is. The black ink that had burst open condensed and healed once again. A series of strange laughter rang out from within. It was filled with boundless pride, giving people the impression that it was a villain who had achieved success. This guy's strength is not strong, but his ability is quite strange. Looking at the scene in front of him with interest, Wuchen simply chose to be a bystander with an indifferent expression as if it had nothing to do with him. Looking at Black Zetsu, Dustless saw the shadow of Kagaya from his figure. His so-called mother's resurrection is not good for you. Looking at Dustless, Madara warned out of good intentions. The implication was nothing more than hoping to join forces with Dustless to kill Black Zetsu, and then discuss the ownership of the Jubi. Unfortunately, Madara was destined to be disappointed. Dustless just glanced at him casually and then simply closed his eyes. "Madara, Obito, why are you struggling? Our purpose is the same from beginning to end, to pull the whole human race into the infinite dream world." Black Zetsu's voice sounded again, full of endless magic with endless bewitchment that can devour people's hearts. He said, "I can make your dreams come true." Hearing this, Black Zetsu's eyes fell on Madara and Obito. As for Dustless, he was ignored directly. "Nonsense, it's Uchiha Madara who wants to control the world and save all mankind, not Kagaya." Madara just sneered again and again. At this moment his ambition was exposed. From beginning to end his dream has never changed. It is to step on the heads of all creatures. Of course, saving the world is also one of his tasks. As for Obito's purpose, he just wants to meet Rin in the dream world, and other things are not important. Inevitably he was bewitched by Black Zetsu and his will was a little shaken. As long as he meets Rin in the dream world, it doesn't matter to him who becomes God. "Idiot, it's so easy to be fooled by me." Seeing Obito in a trance, Black Zetsu laughed again and again, and at the same time he controlled his body to flow in the direction of Obito. The distance was getting closer and closer and he was about to merge with him. When Black Zetsu thought that the plan was successful, A sudden change occurred. The 9 floating truth-seeking balls shattered and turned into a few black iron rods. They were connected to each other and formed a prison. In an instant, it turned into a square black cage. Heiju, who was unaware of it, was trapped in it. For more than 10 years I, Uchiha Obito, have seen through the fickleness of human nature, the fickleness of the world, and all kinds of conspiracies. You think you can get the Jubi for nothing with just a few words? You think too highly of yourself. The indifferent and firm voice with incomparable firmness. Obito's eyes were as bright as the stars, and the whole person's fighting spirit was high, and the loud voice was like rolling thunder resounding through the sky. It seemed that countless scenes of divine thunder were seen, which was spectacular. At last you have the Jubi's Jinchuriki. Dustless saw this and nodded slightly with a smile on his face, reluctantly recognizing Obito as the second Jinchuriki in the world. Then he just sighed. The space ninjutsu used by Black Zetsu before was somewhat similar to Kagaya's, and the truth-seeking balls could not bind him at all. Sure enough, Dustless's voice just fell and another change occurred. Chapter 372. The truth-seeking ball is a black sphere formed by the fusion of the 5 elements and the power of yin and yang. It can nullify any ninjutsu in the world and everything it touches will disappear. Although its ability is good, it can only play a small role in some people, such as Black Zetsu. What an arrogant brat who is impervious to everything. This kind of person usually has the misfortune of dying early. His liquefied body emitted a mysterious wave. The space around him twisted and exploded. An ancient aura came from the strange space. Black Zetsu jumped into the unknown mysterious space. Whether it was Obito or Madara, including Dustless, they all frowned. This kind of jutsu has exceeded the definition of the word ninjutsu. This is outrageous. How can my extraterritorial body possess such a divine skill? Seeing Black Zetsu escape from the truth-seeking Jade's cage, Madara felt more uncomfortable than if he had eaten 10 pounds of flies. Black Zetsu's reckless actions were tantamount to slapping his old face in disguise, and it was the most painful kind of slap. Because in the face of such a mysterious and undetectable ninjutsu, Madara could only look at it and sigh silently. Black Zetsu was just a product he created himself. Now he has an invincible ninjutsu that even his master can't use. Not to mention Madara. I'm afraid it's hard for anyone to accept it. Hateful rat. Madara's anger finally turned into a silent sigh and disappeared. Even if he was unwilling, he could only bury it deep in his heart. It's useless to protest with his mouth, it will only make the enemy look down on him more. Black Zetsu's mysterious space ninjutsu can't be described. Even if he's behind you, you can't detect it with your perception alone. This mysterious technique can't be detected, and the biggest feature is that it completely shields the aura. Even the Jubi's Jinchuriki can't feel it. This guy, Dustless's indifferent expression was a little loose and he couldn't help but clench his fists. Black Zetsu is really hateful. His strength is average, but he plays with his superb space ninjutsu. In short, now Black Zetsu is like a slippery loach and Obito is like a strong man. Although he can easily crush this annoying cockroach, he always escapes easily. Stop here. Black Extinction switched from defense to offense at the right time. He shot out like a cannonball. His speed instantly increased by 100 times. His terrifying speed was comparable to Dustless's speed of light. It could be seen that this old man was very cunning. Previously he had been concealing his strength, showing his weakness to the enemy, waiting for the enemy to relax. Then he would reveal his venomous tongue, like a viper opening its bloody mouth, and launch a fatal sneak attack. Black Zetsu's sudden attack surprised Obito. Obviously he didn't expect Black Zetsu to hide such a trick. In such a short distance there was no time to dodge or use Kamui. He just opened his hands and an endless surge of repulsive force spread out. Super Shinra Tensei. A wisp of ripples splashed out in space as an invincible repulsive force that could topple mountains and overturn seas erupted. Even the flowing air was annihilated, forming a large area of vacuum. A suffocating feeling of difficulty in breathing spread out with boundless might. Naive, how can this kind of low-level technique stop me? The rushing black liquid made a disdainful roar, and immediately turned into a thick sharp thorn. It easily broke through the repulsive field of Super Shinra Tensei and went straight to Obito. In just a blink of an eye, it was close to Obito. Even if Uchiha Madara wanted to use Tomb of Reincarnation to help, Under such an unprecedented speed he was helpless. Black Zetsu's speed was beyond the range of Uchiha Madara's vision, moving at the speed of light like dustless. Puchi. With a special sound of the body being penetrated, looking up, the person who was penetrated was Obito. Obito was penetrated by a black barb. Idiot. Any injury suffered by the Jubi's Jinchuriki will be healed instantly. Do you think it's useful? Looking at the sharp black thorns on his chest, Obito said without any ripples. His tone was calm like autumn water, filled with unprecedented calmness. In front of the Jubi's Jinchuriki, any physical attack is futile, any injury will be healed, and even if there is only one cell left, it can condense a new body. In this way I finally caught you. His eyes narrowed, staring at the sharp thorn that entered his body. Obito's face was filled with ferocity. In his eyes, Black Zetsu, who he couldn't catch, was walking into a trap. Several truth-seeking orbs behind him spun rapidly. Just as they were about to tear Black Zetsu into pieces, a cold and hoarse voice rang out. Inyang release, spiritual possession. With the command of Black Zetsu, his whole body quickly liquefied, and all of his body poured into Obito's body, leaving only Obito's face changed dramatically. Ah! After a moment of silence, an unwilling scream resounded through the sky with endless sorrow. Numerous marks appeared on Obito's body, and his whole body quickly shrank as if he was drained of blood. His body twisted rapidly, and the majestic chakra suddenly spread out. A majestic breath came out from Obito's body, and the ground that couldn't withstand this force was annihilated and collapsed. How can there be someone in the world who has such an abnormal chakra? Dustless's pupils stared at Obito's collapsed figure and said in shock. With Obito's original body as the foundation, a new figure slowly condensed. Even he felt a suffocating pressure. Every time the strange body condensed, the violent chakra would be more turbulent, and with Obito as the center, the space was horribly distorted. After a few breaths, the roaring chakra stopped, and a mysterious woman with long silver hair was reflected in Dustless's pupils. Chapter 373. As time went by, the blurry figure became clearer. The figure that came into view was extremely enchanting. Her eyes were pure white like chaos, her skin was as white as snow, and her dark red thin lips added a touch of allure that could cause the downfall of a country. It gave people a feeling that was particularly contradictory. At the same time she was dignified and inviolable, but at the same time she was filled with an indescribable wild beauty. The legendary goddess of Moro seems to be just so. His eyes narrowed and his sharp eyes looked at Otsutsuki Kagaya. Dustless frowned. It was not difficult to hear that there was a little regret in his melancholy tone. There was an obvious difference between the current Kagaya and her heyday. Uchiha Madara's mouth twitched violently. According to the meaning of Dustless, he wanted this mysterious woman to be stronger. You too. Her cold and indifferent eyes fell on Madara and Dustless, and her eyes flashed a little color. She said in surprise, "The dead man's body contains the chakra of Indra and Asura. It should be the combination of the two forces that led to my power. It stands to reason that the combination of Indra and Asura's chakra should lead to the power of the Six Paths Sannin, but the power of the Six Paths Sannin originated from Kagaya, and it was not an exaggeration to say that it was her own power." His sight fell on Wuchen, who was as calm as the wind and clouds. His expression that was as calm as an ancient well became stiff, and the expression of being isolated from the world began to loosen. "Mother, this guy is very weird, don't be careless." In the spacious sleeve, Black Zetsu got out and his tone was cautious and alert. He had a deep understanding of Dustless's strangeness and mystery. It can be seen that he is indeed different, a freak. Hearing this, Kagaya nodded silently. Dustless in front of her also has the chakra of Asura and Indra, and also has the unique eyes of Otsutsuki. The perfect delicate face evoked a rare smile and Kagaya didn't care. In front of her, no matter how powerful the eyes were, it was futile. Most of the ninjutsu in the world will be absorbed by her. The amount of chakra in this kid's body is quite large. Under the Byakugan state, Kagaya could clearly see the majestic chakra in Dustless's body. The boundless chakra was vast and boundless, like a vast ocean that was inexhaustible. "Then I'll take everything from you first." She raised her jade-like hand gently, and with a wave of her hand an energy wave shot out. It was a casual attack that was extremely plain, but it contained everything. It was filled with the transformations of Yin Yang and the other 5 attributes. Both Dustless and Madara were slightly discolored, and they had a deeper understanding of the horror of Kaguya. The legendary goddess of Uno was like a god of creation. True gods were immortal and indestructible. In my mother's time there was no concept of ninjutsu. The so-called ninjutsu was just the evolution of later generations. Madara and Dustless burst back and escaped the erosion of the airwaves. This was the horror of Kaguya. She could destroy the sky with a flick of her finger. The ninjutsu in the world was pale and powerless for her, and any ninjutsu would be easily absorbed by her. It could be clearly seen that where the energy wave drifted, the void was slightly distorted. It's the source of chakra, the tree of God. Seeing this, Dustless's pupils shrank slightly, and his face was full of caution. Even if Kaguya was not at her peak, the enemy she showed now was more powerful than anyone he had ever faced before. There was an essential difference. The reaction of these 2 boys is good. Frowning slightly, Huiji's tone was a little surprised. Then she resumed her indifferent expression. Her light eyes examined Wuchen with passion, with a hint of greed. The majestic chakra contained in Dustless's body was not enough to describe it with the word, fast. There's no need to avoid it, you will be in my bag soon. A light and pleasant voice sounded. Huiji's words revealed a sense of confidence. She was sure that Wuchen was in her bag. As the ancestor of chakra, there was no reason for her to lose to Dustless. It's useless to say more. If you have the ability, come on. I'm afraid that your teeth are not sharp enough and you will lose a few of your teeth. Dustless directly ignored Kaguya's morbid confidence. There were countless people who wanted to kill him. Kaguya was just the most powerful one in this group. As for Uchiha Madara, he was directly ignored by the 2. He played little role in this level of battle. You have a sharp tongue. When I capture you, I hope you can still be so eloquent. With a snort, Kaguya was too lazy to waste her breath. It was impossible to expect Dustless to wait for death. She could only crush him with absolute strength. Kill Grey Bone. The slender bone spear shot out from the palm of his hand and whistled directly towards Wuchen. The sharp rays of light teased the incomparable rays of light and could penetrate anything that came in contact with it. Seeing this, Wuchen just smiled and didn't dodge. His body glowed with a golden luster at the same time. He stood still with a leisurely and indifferent expression like a stone sculpture. Whoosh! The bone spear passed through Dustless's body, but it couldn't shake him at all. He stood there quietly and stared at the frowning Kaguya. Mother, that kid's ability is very strange. Ordinary physical attacks don't seem to work on him. Only some extraordinary means can work on him. Black Zetsu said in a hoarse voice. Over the years he had studied Dustless's ability and gained a lot of experience. Naturally he had his own unique views. So what? Any attack is invalid and it will only become a stronger nourishment for me. Kaguya's eyes flashed with a strong sense of possessiveness. Dustless's majestic body and chakra behind him, she was determined to get it. No one could stop her. Chapter 374. Kaguya's resurrection is not complete, but Dustless is not afraid. Kaguya treats him as a meal on her plate, and so does Dustless. The Jubi's Jinchuriki is the source of chakra and no one is not jealous of it. You treat me as something in the bag, but I am also determined to get you. Staring at Kaguya with a smile, Dustless's tone was unusually firm, and his resolute voice was unshakable. It's hard to say who is whose prey. At least Dustless doesn't think that he will be swallowed by Kaguya. Remember this, old monster. Raising his eyelids, Wuchen's aura rose to the limit. His stern eyes emitted a cold light that penetrated through everything. His cold voice was like a biting cold winter. No matter what kind of monster you are, it doesn't matter. All in all, for me, you are a stepping stone for me to become stronger. It's best not to try to resist me and let me put the collar on your neck obediently. In this way I can save your face. His gaze fell on Otsutsuki Kaguya's body, and the eye power in his eyes was surging like stormy waves, and the oppressive eye power was enough to distort the void. Shameless boasting. Hearing this, Huiji's beautiful face turned cold and her eyes were filled with fire. The words of a shameless junior who was thousands of years younger than her were especially harsh. He actually said that he wanted to put a collar on her. How ridiculous. Mother, Please calm down, this kid just provoked your anger and took the opportunity to seize your weakness to give a fatal blow. Feeling the murderous aura overflowing from Kagaya's body, Black Zetsu persuaded with cold sweat. That oppressive, majestic, murderous aura also made him feel suffocated. If you want to destroy it, you must first make it crazy. This is Dustless's usual trick, mother. Please don't fall for it. After about a while, Kagaya seemed to have listened to Black Zetsu's advice, and her murderous aura dissipated, and her whole person calmed down, but even so, the remaining murderous aura in the void was still terrifying. Ka. Huey tore at the space in front of her with both hands, and the space in front of her instantly collapsed. She stared at the dark crack in front of her, and without thinking she entered it. There was no trace of him at all. His aura had also completely disappeared, vanishing from the world. What a convenient technique. Seeing this, Dustless's pupils solidified, and the hairs all over his body stood up. This unknown space ninjutsu was extremely strange. Whether it appeared or had no aura, it was impossible to capture it. Ka. The void behind Dustless suddenly twisted and a beautiful figure emerged from it. Her beautiful silver hair fluttered in the wind, and her seemingly delicate hand grabbed at Dustless. Suddenly he felt that his neck was bound by something cold and soft. Dustless was slightly stunned and turned his head. It was Huey G with a complicated expression. At such a close distance, Dustless could even smell the elegant body fragrance on Huey G's body. The hot air exhaled from her jade-like nose also swam Dustless's side. Take your claws away from me. Turning his head and looking at the hand on his neck, Dustless said coldly. At the same time, a cold light flashed in his eyes. The golden particles in his hand gathered, and a slender and sharp golden sword suddenly flashed. Just as he was about to raise his blade and cut Huey off, her light voice rang out. I can see the shadow of Hagoromo and Hamura from your figure. She quietly stroked Dustless's face, and 2 lines of tears fell uncontrollably from the corners of her eyes. Huey G's tone was sobbing. Being betrayed by her own son, no matter who was right or wrong, was a chilling thing. Blood is thicker than water. Any mother who is betrayed by her own son will despair. Staring at Huey G's eyes, Dustless's eyes were as clear as water. In the dark he saw through the depths of her heart. The real pain was not to kill the other party directly. With the betrayal of Hamura and Hagoromo, her heart was as cold as ice, and she completely sealed herself. There was no mother in the world who didn't love her own child. Be a part of my power, I can help you fulfill your long-cherished wish. The Kusanagi sword stopped. It seemed that the so-called conscience was replaced by Huey G's true feelings. Dustless's voice suddenly became much lighter. Although it was still very cold, it gave people a feeling of a lot more human feelings. Obviously, Huey G couldn't accept Dustless's meaning. She was the goddess of Mao, the god of creation. It was simply wishful thinking for her to be a part of Dustless. You're no match for me. I'm immortal and indestructible. Hearing this, Huey G's voice was light. Even though she was an old monster who had lived for thousands of years, she was still young. Time did not leave a trace on her body. In that case, I can only force you to wear a collar. The conscience in his eyes was completely restrained. Dustless turned into a fierce beast that only knew how to kill. The Kusanagi sword rose from the ground, and the blade slashed towards Huey G's face. The sharp light could cut through everything. It was enough to see that Dustless didn't have the slightest mercy. After all, Huey G was immortal. Even if she was injured, she would recover. She could be said to be the strongest existence. Small tricks are useless against me. Seeing this, a faint smile appeared on Huey's face. An ordinary-looking bone appeared in the palm of her other hand, and she indifferently threw it towards the incoming golden light. Clang! The buzzing sound of steel colliding suddenly sounded, and a fleeting spark swept up. Looking up, Huey G easily borrowed Dustless's attack. At the same time, Dustless's body glowed with a gorgeous golden luster, and Huey G's hand also left Dustless's face. Why do I have such a feeling? Frowning, Huey G stared at the thin figure that had gathered again in the distance. The tears at the corner of her eyes disappeared. In an instant she had an inexplicable feeling. Dustless was clearly in front of her, but he gave her a ridiculous feeling that he was far away. She couldn't grasp the golden figure with her hand alone. This time was forever. Chapter 375. Boom boom boom. The ear-piercing roar resounded through the sky and invisible ripples splashed in the void. The white clouds that were struggling at death's door were swallowed up and disappeared without a trace. Looking up, it was Dustless and Kaguya who were fighting. The abilities of both of them had obviously reached the limit. When they moved, the wind and thunder would roll and the earth would sink. Even if it was just a simple physical battle, the extent of the exaggerated fighting was infinitely vast and affected the entire sky. Yasakani no Magatama. Tens of thousands of rays of light poured down, and the densely packed number was enough to turn people into a sieve. It was cold and ruthless. Dustless, the caster, was full of murderous intent and developed the power of this technique to the limit. The powerful aura enveloped every corner of the sky. It's a very novel move, but, looking straight at the tens of thousands of rays of light, Kaguya just smiled in relief. Her thin and delicate body emitted a huge amount of chakra waves. Such an ordinary attack is useless against me. High-density chakra gathered in the palm of her hand, and with a gentle wave of her hand, the shadows of the fist were clearly visible. 80 God's air attack. Above the boundless void, boundless fists bloomed with a bang. The uncountable number of fists dazzled everyone's eyes as they collided with the golden light bullets that were speeding towards them. Bang bang bang. It was obvious that the power of the fists was above the golden light bullets and they were as fierce as tigers. In the blink of an eye, the light bullets all over the sky were disintegrated, and they rushed toward Dustless with more ferocious force. Compared with the shadows all over the sky, Dustless, who was alone, seemed to be abandoned by the whole world, like a criminal who was about to be executed. This monotonous technique also has no effect on me. The Rinnegan Sharingan rippled, and the 9 mysterious Magatama hanging on the black lines trembled. The sky splashed with weak ripples, and the invisible airwaves quietly spread. Babrata. As Wu Chen's voice fell, the weak ripples instantly became thousands of times stronger, turning into an earth-shattering airwave. With an unstoppable momentum, it simply swallowed the countless fists like a whale. Is this the ability of his left eye? Amir Jr. can actually reach such a level. Seeing the sky full of fists collapse in an instant, Huey's eyes flashed with a little shock. Dustless was the first person to destroy her move so easily. Everything is about reciprocity. This is my reciprocation. The blue pupil power in his right eye started to go berserk and a boundless repulsive force shot out. His aura was raised to the limit, and the faint golden light in his hand was clearly visible. This brat. Seeing this, Huey was stunned. Then she looked at Dustless with admiration. Since ancient times, Dustless was the only one other than her deadly enemy who could fight her head-on and not be at a disadvantage. Golden Wheel Reincarnation. The sound of something breaking through the air suddenly rang out, and a dazzling golden luster came into view. Looking up, a golden beam of light that almost covered the entire void swept over. Dustless's face was indifferent, his face was not red, and he was not out of breath, as if he was silently saying that as long as it is possible, it is not a problem to extend it several times. Very strong. Stronger than the Hagoromo and the Hamura brothers. You're a very good brat. Huey nodded secretly. Although she said so, her expression was calm. Her jade hand shook slightly and several black balls turned into a mysterious black enchantment on her side. The enchantment that was as thin as a cicada's wing seemed to be easily broken, but whether it was Huey G or Black Zetsu in her sleeve, they were both calm and composed. They stood quietly in the same place without dodging or evading, mocking Dustless's weakness. This kid is a problem student. His bones are very hard and he is not disciplined. It is time for Mother's game time to end. You should collect the chakra scattered all over the world as soon as possible. Black Zetsu in Huey's sleeve suggested. He had a deep understanding of Dustless's difficulty. Mother was very strong and as a chakra Huiwei had a variety of trump cards, but Dustless was the same. For more than 10 years, no one had forced Dustless to use his full strength. Uchiha Madara couldn't do it and Uchiha Obito couldn't do it. What you said is true. This kid is indeed unusual. He is a qualified stepping stone. Collect the chakra's hand and deal with him. Huey nodded her white chin, and the interest in her eyes disappeared in an instant. She looked into the distance and saw the situation of the whole world. At the same time, the golden light sword also came into close contact with the black defensive enchantment. Gotcha. There was a violent vibration in the void and a crisp sound suddenly sounded. Looking up, she thought that the black enchantment as thin as a cicada's wing would be annihilated by the force. But in fact, it was not. So powerful it's really scary. Wu Chen sighed. Following his line of sight, he saw that the thousands of feet-long golden light sword was strangely broken into two halves, and the initiator was the black defensive wall. On the black enchantment condensed by the truth-seeking ball, only a trace was left. She's too strong. This is the case when she is not in her complete state. No wonder Hagoromo Sanin and Otsutsuki Himura could only seal her. Black hair fluttered in the wind, Dustless's eyes were unusually deep, and the corner of his mouth was gently raised with a calm smile. Whether it was the Tensigan or Rinsei Sharingan, they were not his trump cards. Although Otsutsuki Kagaya was unbelievably strong, Dustless was still confident enough to defeat her, and finally put the chain around her neck and make her part of his strength. Gotcha! Suddenly the ground shattered and a thick green tree penetrated into the void. It coincided with the divine tree released by Obito before, and the bud that was about to bloom was clearly visible. This is the divine tree, but something seems wrong. Chapter 376. The green trees went deep into the ground, connecting the sky and the earth, and the developed roots were dense like a spider web, penetrating every inch of the earth. Absorbing nutrients from the earth without limit, the roots grew luxuriant branches, crazily surging in all directions as if they had been fed with hormones. The whole world was suddenly swallowed by this dark green forest. Whether it was the Ninja Coalition Army or the White Zetsu Army, they were all swallowed up and only some peerless powerhouses could barely survive. Of course, Dustless wasn't worried about Konan, Yuluo, Hinata, Honrin, Cheyenne and the other girls. Although the scope of this unknown technique was extremely terrifying, it wasn't targeted. It just swallowed the whole world. Moreover, Dustless was familiar with the bodies of the girls, and these attacks didn't cause any trouble for them. You seem to be very relaxed. From your expression, you seem to know me quite well. I'm curious, how do you have the confidence to face me when you're so calm and composed? Kagaya frowned. Dustless looked indifferent, giving the feeling that he wouldn't change his expression even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of him. His breathing was steady and powerful, and his deep eyes were as bright as the stars. This confidence made Huiji feel very uncomfortable. Her face turned gloomy and murderous. She was just playing around with Wu Chen earlier, now she really wanted to kill him. Especially through the tree on the ground, a steady stream of chakra entered her body, and Kagaya felt an unprecedented comfort. She was close to recovering to the peak. That is, her eyes narrowed slightly, staring at the Kagaya's yang attribute chakra on the ground. Kagaya's face was full of desire. The only thing she lacked among the tailed beasts was the Kagaya's yang attribute chakra. Ka. The ground under Kagaya's feet burst open and countless green vines directly entangled him, easily tying him up, and began to devour the Kagaya's chakra. Ao. Because his consciousness was controlled, Kagaya could only instinctively let out a burst of sadness, full of nostalgia for the world, and even if he was unwilling he couldn't do anything. Facing the powerful Kagaya, Kyubi, who was once a part of her, could not resist at all. After a while, the nine-tailed chakra was sucked into the divine tree through the dense vines, and then directly into Kagaya's body through a special method. This long-lost feeling is really irresistible. Kagaya muttered to herself absent-mindedly. Originally, when Black Zetsu resurrected her, it was not complete. The lack of Kyubi's yang chakra caused her strength to be greatly reduced. Now that the chakra of the nine-tailed beast had completely merged into one, Kagaya naturally regained her previous cultivation. Before I deal with you, I'll deal with this annoying bug first. She casually glanced at Dustless, and the space in front of her shattered. An ancient and mysterious aura floated out of the dark space that could devour everything. Without a second thought, Hui stepped right in. The most primitive space ninjutsu. Although invading her space consumes some chakra, it's just a drop in the bucket for me. After observing for a while, Dustless's frowning brows loosened, and the corners of his mouth raised a smile of success. With a sneer, his eyes were filled with murderous intent as he stared at Kagaya, who sneaked into the dark space. Ka. The space quietly opened again and Kagaya rushed out of it. The dead man in red armor in front of her was obviously not Dustless, but Uchiha Madara. A dead mortal is using my power unscrupulously. This is blasphemy. Kaguya was furious. Chakra was something that belonged to her alone. Now these ants are using her power without permission. It's unforgivable. A voice full of endless killing intent sounded behind him. Uchiha Madara was shocked and turned around without hesitation. What he saw was a sharp bone spear whistling towards him. Puchi. With the sound of flesh being cut, looking up, Uchiha Madara's abdomen was pierced with sharp bone spears, deep inside Madara's body, full of some special indescribable special power devouring Madara's body. The invincible Edo Tensei was collapsing. Don't show such a shocked expression. This is one of Mother's strongest moves. Anything that comes into contact with Grey Bone's mutual slaying will gradually collapse, including combatants that have been reincarnated from Edo Tensei. Seeing Uchiha Madara's incredible expression, Black Zetsu explained out of kindness. Even if I die, I will take you too with me. His pupils suddenly widened and Uchiha Madara roared unwillingly. His life's plan was a wedding dress for others in the end. How could he not be angry? He vowed that even if he died he would take Black Zetsu and Kaguya with him. There are a lot of problem children who are not disciplined. Looking at Uchiha Madara's dying struggle, Black Zetsu's tone was extremely cold. Wheel grave, border prison. With his last strength, Uchiha Madara uttered his last song, and an unprecedented repulsion exploded with Madara's hatred. Insignificant skill. Kaguya just shook her head slightly, raised her hand, and shot out a strong hurricane, directly killing the shadow summoned by Madara from the wheel grave. Others may not be aware of it, but she could see it clearly. Uchiha Madara's face suddenly turned ugly, and when he was about to launch the wheel grave again, his body had completely collapsed and disappeared forever with the wind. One is dead. When she turned around and was about to kill Dustless, the golden brilliance suddenly resounded through the sky. Staring at the golden brilliance above the sky, Kaguya, who was bathed in it, felt a sense of panic instinctively. In the face of this golden light, she who was immortal seemed to have met a deadly enemy. Your power is very strong, but next I should also show my power to play with you. Even you, the goddess of Uno, don't understand light. Chapter 377. A dazzling brilliance came head-on, and the boundless energy tide was like a vast ocean, rushing towards Huey with great pressure. Don't touch it. An unprecedented aura of death shrouded her body, and Huey-G's eyes were filled with determination. She made a prompt decision, and her weak little hand tore the void in front of her. Ka. The seemingly weak little hand was extremely terrifying. A crack appeared in the space in front of her, and Huey-G stepped into it without hesitation. On the other hand, Dustless also had a shocking change at this moment. His eyes were faintly dotted with some golden light spots, and it was dazzling. His indifferent temperament added some dominance for no reason. A sense of dominance over all living things arose spontaneously. Boom, boom, boom. The golden energy tide was like an ancient lament, and the entire sky was wailing, faintly begging for mercy, emitting waves of mournful cries. Looking up, the void was strangely boiling and the flowing air was emitting hot waves. It was obvious that it was evaporated by this strange golden power. This is one of my abilities. Both eyes looked at the void in front of him. Where Dustless's gaze was focused, the void distorted and rippled. Huey-G's peerless figure stood out. Different from before, the indifferent Huey-G's expression finally relaxed, and there was a hint of embarrassment and discomfort. Treacherous sinner, you deserve to die. Huey-G's face was pale, and her eyes were filled with anger that could burn all living things. Her murderous intent was awe-inspiring, and because of her excessive anger, her graceful body was trembling slightly. Following Dustless's gaze, Huey-G was in an extremely embarrassing state. There were obvious burn marks on her body, and on the right side of her chest, one could clearly see the white jade-like skin. Further down, it was a place that was not suitable for children. Her white skin was tinged with red, and it was faintly discernible, causing one's imagination to run wild. It was no wonder that Huey-G was so angry. The high and mighty goddess of Mao was forced into such an embarrassing state by Dustless. How could she not be angry? I am the flash person who ate the flash fruit, and my physique has also inherited everything of light. Dustless's dry and cracked lips opened slightly. He did not care whether Huiji understood or not. He said to himself, the ability I used before was the usual move of the glistening fruit. Dustless's indifferent eyes fell on Hui's body. His voice was as light as autumn water, revealing a state of being aloof from worldly affairs. Like I said before, you just need to stand there quietly and let me put the collar on you. But you swore at me and even raised your sword at me. You only have yourself to blame. The mystery of light is something that even a god cannot understand. After speaking, Dustless stood with his hands behind his back. The corner of his mouth curled up into a light smile. He was fearless. Shameless boasting. Huiji's pretty face changed drastically. Her eyes scanned her body without leaving a trace, and her face flashed with shame and anger. She waved her hand and the brand new divine robe condensed again. The exposed parts were also covered. Whoosh! She lifted her hand gently and chakra erupted. There was no fancy move, just a casual wave of chakra, and a strong wave of air suddenly appeared in the void. There was no need for fancy moves, it was direct and concise. Huiji was like this. Looking into the distance, the blade storm was formed in an instant. The scale was huge, comparable to a small black hole in the universe. It directly swallowed and distorted the sky. The small black hole in the center was enough to swallow the world. The ninjutsu in the world is derived from you, but so what? The physical attacks in the world are ineffective against me. Feeling the endless gravitational force in the vortex, Dustless looked relaxed and calm. His messy black hair danced and his clothes were blown up by the wind, but he was surprisingly calm. Now I will let you see the true ability of light. It is the ability to surpass the normal state of the devil fruit. It is the foundation of the original move, the awakening state of glinting fruit. The strange smile on the corner of his mouth disappeared in an instant. Dustless's whole body was covered with golden chakra. The evil wave suddenly descended, and the giant samurai stood between heaven and earth. This time, Kinsisanu was different from any previous time. Because the Uchiha family is a cursed family, abandoned by the heavens, only by falling will they gain great strength. Therefore the ninjutsu used has an evil aura. Kinsisanu was even more so. It was as ferocious as a ghost and the evil aura was more intense. However, this time, Kinsisanu displayed by Dustless was different from before. The evil aura disappeared, and the exaggerated height of nearly 200 meters was very peaceful. The feeling it gave was also particularly strange. It was as if bathing in the winter sun and it was particularly warm. I've seen a ghost. Black Zetsu, who was in Kagaya's sleeve, was stunned for a long time, then the corners of his mouth squirmed as he said in surprise. It's not that he hasn't seen the Susanoo of the Uchiha clan before. It gives people a pure feeling of evil full of endless destruction. The original meaning of Kinsusanoo was destruction. The Kansusanoo in front of him was very gentle, and it didn't give the feeling of depression and despair, but infinite vitality. There is no need to be surprised. It is also the first time I used the awakening state of glinting fruit. It is normal that you don't know. I am invincible in this state. With a little golden light in his eyes, Dustless's loud voice resounded through the sky. Chapter 378. Kagaya's face was full of astonishment. Her calm heart had been settled for thousands of years, and it was calm like stagnant water. At this moment her heart was like a stormy sea. Damn kid, I should have killed him secretly at the beginning. It's a mistake to grow to this day. Black Zetsu stared at the light ball held in Kinsusanu's hand. He was composed of black liquid matter and said with hatred. At the same time he did not hesitate to curse Uchiha Madara who had died. Yes, it was indeed a mistake not to get rid of him. Hui lowered her head, her eyes flickering with a strange light. She tried her best to pretend to be calm, but everyone could hear the regret in her voice. It's all my fault. Black Zetsu sighed in the sleeve, full of helplessness. At the same time he changed the thread of discussion and said tentatively, Mother, this guy's strength is so strong. It's not a bad thing for us to walk on thin ice. Black Zetsu's voice made Kagaya slightly stunned. After a while she nodded silently. Although there's a suspicion of inviting a wolf into the house, it's still a feasible plan. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. That woman's goal is all living things including me. This little brat called Wu Chen is also her prey. Especially someone with such shocking strength like him. That B***starred woman absolutely has no reason to let him go. After all, this is the blood that makes her stronger. Kagaya's mind fell into memories, recalling the mysterious woman who had invaded this land. Her face was gloomy. It was because she was not the opponent of that woman that she released the big illusion of infinite Tsukuyami to the whole world and turned all human beings into her soldiers to fight against the enemy. Damn, it's hot. Black Zetsu in the sleeve groaned and stared at the light ball in the hand of perfect form Kinsusu full of fear. The principle of this technique seems to be the same as Mother's expansion truth-seeking ball. The sky for hundreds of miles was shrouded in golden flashes. The blazing temperature eroded the void. Because of the light, destruction and new life coexisted. Looking into the distance, Kinsusu was holding a huge light ball in his hand. It was as terrifying as the sun, constantly absorbing the photons of the outside world to expand its size. Anything that came into contact with it would instantly evaporate. On the other hand, the world inside the light sphere was warm, peaceful and full of vitality. It was as if as long as this devastated world was destroyed, the constantly expanding new world inside the light sphere would replace it. I have an immortal body. She stared fearlessly at the ball of light that was getting closer and closer. Or rather, the sun that was getting closer and closer. At the same time, her aura rose and her face was solemn. It was as if she was ready to fight to the death with Dustless. But in Black Jew's ears, his confidence was lacking. As the saying goes, there is always someone stronger than the strong. If Kagaya was really undying and fearless, there would be no need for her to waste infinite Tsukuyami to create her own soldiers to fight the invaders from the other world. Just like Uchiha Madara, he didn't see Kagaya's peerless talent and thought that he was invincible. In fact, in Kagaya's eyes, he was just a clown. This world is an important nursery for me. Let's change to another world to fight to the death. Kagaya's line of sight expanded, and the situation of the entire world was visible at a glance. She didn't care about Dustless. Her slender fingers elegantly stretched out of her sleeve, and with a flick of her fingers, ripples splashed in the void. In an instant, an extremely overbearing aura overflowed from her body, and Kagaya transformed into a peerless goddess who controlled everything in the world. Time and space were rapidly distorted. With a delicate shout, the world in front of her suddenly began to shift and become a strange world. Heaven's defense. The world reflected in her line of sight was completely different, and it became an unknown mysterious space full of dissolved acid. Dustless was suddenly forcibly pulled into this strange world. Plop. Caught off guard, Kinsusu fell directly into the ocean full of acid. The invincible Kinsusu was dismembered and melted into nothingness in the blink of an eye. Only the golden energy ball that gathered in the sky was left. Want to devour me? Then I'll devour your world of dissolved acid first. With a sinister smile, Dustless's body emerged from the acid sea, and he looked at Kagaya with a gloomy face. At the same time, he waved his hand suddenly, and the huge light ball began to expand at a speed that was difficult to see with the naked eye. Turn into ashes with your world. The golden energy ball expanded without limit, and in a short period of time, its volume was several times larger than before. No matter what it touched, it turned into ashes and evaporated. Including the dissolved acid of Kinsusu, which had previously melted after boiling for a while, it was still evaporated easily. The constantly expanding golden light created a new space and devoured everything in the original world. It could be said that it was both a creation and a destruction technique. It was completely similar to Kagaya's expansion truth-seeking jade. This was one of the moves that Dustless used the Glint Fruit's awakening state and Kinsusu. It was not inferior to Kagaya's expansion truth-seeking jade. This little brat really wants to kill us all. Taking a deep breath, Kagaya clenched her fists and said in a suppressed voice. If it was an ordinary technique, she could absorb it, but light was not a technique. In such a serious situation, there were only two choices. Either she braced herself and was swallowed by the golden light, or she passively avoided the battle. Without thinking, Kagaya directly tore the space and jumped in without hesitation. She was not a masochist. Even if she had an immortal body, she did not dare to fight head-on. And this strange light ball gave her an extremely dangerous feeling. Even if she had an immortal body, she would not be able to recover. Stupid woman, this is what I've been waiting for. Seeing this, Dustless's mouth raised a strange smile. He stared at the closed dark space that had not yet disappeared. His eyes turned and emitted a surge of eye power. The world-destroying light ball disappeared along with Dustless. Chapter 379. In a strange space full of ice and snow, the void was distorted and ripples spread out. The small vortex gradually enlarged and a figure drilled out of it. Taking a closer look, it was Kaguya who was forced to retreat by Dustless. The ability of light, it's really tricky. That kid with a mortal body can steal the ability of a god. It's really enviable. Clenching her fists, a pleasant voice of admiration sounded in the void. The soft magnetic voice full of admiration lingered in the sky for a long time without dispersing. There was no one in the boundless ice and snow world. There is no doubt that the person who spoke is Kaguya. Thinking of Dustless's strange move, she sincerely sighed. Mother, that Flash kid is our enemy. Black Zetsu in the robe didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Kaguya's words made him speechless. Although he also quite appreciates Dustless, after all, to be able to rely on his own strength to fight Kaguya, the ancestor of chakra, is not something a mortal can do. But in the final analysis, the two sides have different standpoints and are destined to be enemies. Of course I know this. Hearing this, Kaguya faintly responded. After all, their standpoints are different. For Dustless, she only appreciates him and has no other complicated thoughts. That kid actually wants to give it to me. Thinking of Dustless's arrogant words before, Kaguya's murderous intent was awe-inspiring. Dustless shamelessly said that he would put a collar on her. This is no longer a simple insult. It's a direct slap in the face, trampling on her dignity. All living things are under my control. A mere ant wants to possess me. A child of a concubine doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. With a snort, Kaguya's murderous intent was awe-inspiring. Dustless's ambition to become the Jinchuriki of the ten-tailed beast also means that Kaguya will lose her freedom again and live in the cage built for her by Dustless. Kacha. A powerful energy fluctuation suddenly came from the void, and the calm horizon suddenly twisted. The small vortex gradually enlarged as if it was being torn apart by some special power. In the blink of an eye, a dark black hole nearly 1,000 meters in size could be clearly seen. After a few breaths of time, it was filled with golden light. An unprecedented golden ball of light fell with Dustless's voice and swallowed Huey. The life and death of the people of this world have nothing to do with me, and the fate of whoever you decide is also your own will. However, there is one thing that you seem to have not understood. Dustless, who was floating in the sky, came into view. He stared at Huey, who was swallowed by the ball of light, with a contemptuous smile. His pupils dilated and his cold voice echoed in the void. I am the one who controls your life. Your life is in my hands, not the heavens. As soon as he finished speaking, the world of ice and snow was swallowed by the energy ball that was magnified without limit. Everything that came into contact with the ball of light was annihilated and turned into nothingness. At the same time, a new and unfamiliar space was born. You will never understand in this lifetime. Retracting his gaze, Dustless's eyes were calm again. Huey would never understand how he invaded, but in fact it was very simple. Back then, when he defeated Obito in the system, Dustless obtained all of Obito's abilities, including his Mangekyo ability. The moment Huey used Heaven's defense, he used God's might to swallow the golden energy ball and put it into a different space. At the same time, he used God's might again to resonate with Huey's space. That was how he invaded. The process was simple and direct, but in fact it was extremely difficult. The gap between the techniques had to be grasped very accurately. Gone with the wind with your ambition. Farewell, Huey. A new world was born in a different space. Flowers, trees, birds, and beasts were all there. The fresh air of nature rushed into the ear and nose, and a strange sense of familiarity arose spontaneously. It was completely different from the previous world of snow. When he looked up, he saw that the entire world had undergone a tremendous change. It was different from the truth-seeking jade, but the principle was almost the same. The truth-seeking jade was a transformation of the 7 natures of the 5 elements in yin and yang. Light was a unique special attribute, and it could be said to be able to destroy and create the world. This old monster is really troublesome. Scratching his head with a headache, Wu Chen's eyes flashed with surprise. Following his line of sight, no one could remain calm when they saw the scene in front of them. Being attacked by Dustless's sudden attack, Huey was caught off guard and was hit. Her body was constantly swallowed by the golden light ball. What was shocking was that while she was being swallowed, her body was rapidly recovering. The next second after being annihilated, a new body was condensed. Imprisoning her in my body, I should be able to do the same. Dustless's eyes were shining, and the covetousness in his eyes was undisguised. His gaze was naked and direct, and it was full of longing. Mysterious runes appeared all over his body, and the ancient sound of Sanskrit drifted out. An ancient aura crossed the eternal space and quietly descended to the world. Looking up, Dustless's body changed strangely again. The light was thousands of feet long, and it was like a shining person covered in the sun. His whole body was covered with endless devouring power that could suck the vast universe. Just as he was about to absorb Huey into his body, another change occurred. Suddenly, weak ripples splashed in the void, and the weak ripples merged into the void. It was silent and extremely weak, like a breeze that was not worth mentioning. The moment it came into contact with Dustless, the situation changed dramatically. The weak ripples turned into a destructive storm that annihilated the sky. Time and space were distorted beyond recognition, and it was a mess. Dustless, who didn't realize it, was hit by an unprecedented attack and was directly thrown out. It's not Otsutsuki Kagaya. This special power is not chakra, nor does it belong to the category of immortal technique, let alone taijutsu. His face changed dramatically, and he stared at the dark space in front of him. Where his line of sight focused, he could clearly see countless blood mist filling the air. The majestic power that crushed the sky made even Dustless's calmness stunned. On the contrary, Huey, who escaped from Dustless's awe-inspiring attack, had an ugly expression on her face, and there was a faint fear in her eyes. Chapter 380. Taking a deep breath, Dustless forcibly suppressed the shock in his heart. His pupils overflowed with blood as he stared at the black hole in front of him, and his eyes flashed with horror. Breaking the void with a snap of the fingers, are you kidding me? Even with Dustless's unchanging heart, he was shocked beyond words. He and Kagaya, including Uchiha Obito, can use space ninjutsu at will, but there is an essential difference between breaking the void with brute force. To some extent, the reason why Dustless can tear the space is because of the ability of Kamui, and the mysterious enemy who suddenly appeared is completely with his own pure strength. Especially the airwave that just bounced him away, Dustless felt that he was particularly fragile. No different from a lonely boat in the sea as long as the other party can pinch him to death. Humph, no matter who you are, people who disturb my good things will end up the same death. Dustless's Rinnegan was filled with endless killing intent. His tone was as cold as ice. He is not the kind of person who will resign himself to adversity. This is his belief in life. Being slapped in the face and not biting back, this is not his style of seeking death, and the word fear is not in Dustless's dictionary. Dustless's Rinnegan opened wide, and the focus of his sight was the bottomless black hole. The surging eye power with the anger of Dustless surged out. Ninjutsu has no limit, it is completely different from person to person. The strong is strong and the weak is weak. Mahabharata. In the center of the black hole, invisible ripples with white light spread out, and the boiling airwaves swept away the fallen leaves, dispersing the endless darkness and blood mist, and in the blink of an eye, the sky was restored to clear. It's just so. Seeing the black smoke being swallowed by the airwaves, Dustless's mouth raised a smile. In less than a moment, the smile on the corner of the mouth directly stiffened. The darkness and blood mist that had been swallowed by the Mahabharata boiled up again. Its momentum was monstrous, covering the sky. It was so arrogant that it was almost liquefied. It was extremely oppressive. Dustless seemed to hear the sharp screams of 10,000 ghosts, and his mind was filled with a roar. After a few breaths of time, he regained his clarity. He stared at the black hole surrounded by blood mist with a gloomy and fearful expression. Little brat, that woman is not as simple as you think. There are 3,000 universes, 3,000 worlds, and thousands of races in the vast universe. There are countless experts. I am a god, and similarly there are gods who are stronger than me. The space beside him shattered silently, and a beautiful figure jumped out from it. It was Huey, who was holding a sharp bone. She landed beside Dustless with a serious expression. The voice was gentle and pleasant. It was undoubtedly Kagaya. Moving his feet, he turned around and examined Huiji. Wuchen frowned. This fellow was actually unscathed and full of energy. Of course, she was not completely unscathed. At the very least, Huiji's face was pale. So what? The sky is high. When the time comes, as long as I take you, I will be able to live freely in the world. Even if you are a god, you will not be able to stop my progress. Looking at Huiji expressionlessly, Dustless's eyes were filled with death light. Just as he was about to swallow her and fly away, a sudden voice startled Dustless. Ah, thousands of years have passed, but you still haven't changed. A light and teasing voice quietly spread. The sound wave that came was filled with the smell of blood, and a fiery red demonic figure came into view. Dustless frowned. This dense murderous aura made him feel like he was in purgatory. But the light voice was a little surprised. After silently observing for a while, it said with a teasing tone, Hui, you are an old monster who has lived for thousands of years. You actually have this kind of fetish. You stole an energetic Mahabaroya. Bang. The fiery red figure was directly blown up by the invisible airwave. The whole body turned into a demonic blood mist, and the blood beads scattered in the void. The strange blood beads floated in the void, and suddenly emitted a dark red blood light. It was like the summons of God and once again reassembled to form the previous figure. The fairy-like pretty face appeared again. Her red lips were raised and her sight also fell on Wu Chen's body. Her eyes, which were as resplendent as gemstones, flashed with surprise. Tissaye, no wonder you old witch would like him. He is strong and his eyes are not weaker than yours. If it were me, I might also choose such a spouse as my husband. A strange voice sounded. The beautiful woman in red did not care about the situation. She completely ignored Dustless and Huey and muttered to herself. The pleasant voice was deliberately amplified and lingered in the void for a long time without dissipating. What a strange ninjutsu. It seems to be similar to the ability of my glint fruit. It can also ignore physical attacks. As a man, Dustless's skin was as thick as the city wall. He turned a deaf ear to the woman in red's ridicule and thought secretly in his heart. However, the thin-skinned Huey couldn't keep her face. As the goddess of Uno, she could treat it as a fart and pretend that she didn't hear anything. Dustless, the person involved, was indeed present. Naturally, he had to take care of his face. The bone spear in his hand surged with cold light, and the space in front of him shattered. He jumped into the dark, mysterious space. When he reappeared, he was already beside the woman in red. The bone blade in his hand rose and fell, and directly slashed towards the neck of the woman in red. The edge of the blade could easily flatten large mountains. After thousands of years, you still haven't changed at all. The woman in red was shocked and her face was calm. Obviously, she knew that Huey would suddenly attack and there was a smile in her red eyes. Her dress trembled, overflowing with dark red bloodlight. The luster condensed into a prison and bound Huey in it. I've already figured out this trick of yours 1,000 years ago. The woman in red's eyes turned and she was extremely proud. No matter who you are, whether she is the sacred tree or Jubi, Otsutsuki Kagaya, they are all part of my power. Those who touch them without permission will be killed without mercy. Golden Wheel Reincarnation Explosion. Chapter 381. There was no doubt that the owner of the domineering voice was Dustless. This guy. Staring at the boundless golden light swords, the woman in red frowned. Her face was no longer as calm as before. Instead, a hint of caution appeared on her delicate jade-like face. At the same time, the golden light sword that was about to cut the entire world in half came down. Child's play. Looking up at the light beam that was about to cut her in half, the woman in red's expression was indifferent. She lifted her slender fingers slightly, revealing her snow-white wrist. A bloody light rose from the ground and headed straight for the light beam above her head. The bloody light flew into the air and underwent a shocking change. It suddenly exploded, forming a red barrier that was as thin as a cicada's wing and covered the entire sky. The ordinary-looking red barrier was extremely weak and fluttered with the wind. Puchi. The invincible golden light beam came and inevitably slashed the crimson barrier. She thought that it would directly explode, but the truth was the opposite. The barrier was extremely tough. Under the ferocious impact, It displayed an unimaginable elasticity. Not only did it not break, but it also bounced off the light beam. How can such a weak move be defeated? The woman in red's eyes were filled with pride. Just as she was about to ruthlessly mock Dustless, a special energy fluctuation suddenly came from beside her. Slightly stunned, she subconsciously turned around. The scene that greeted her eyes almost made her go crazy. Unknowingly, Huey and Dustless were standing side by side. Cunning brat. The woman in red's pretty face turned ugly. Her eyes were filled with murderous intent as she glared at Dustless. Endless murderous intent was not concealed at all. A rapidly oppressive aura raged out like a tide, pressing down on Dustless and Huey. Let's put aside our grudge for now and deal with her first. Turning his head and glancing at Huey, Dustless said coldly. Although he helped her out just now, he did not expect such a proud and strong woman like Huey to bow her head and thank him. Hearing this, Huey only indifferently glanced at Dustless. You and her are both ambitious wolves. Both of you want to devour me and take me for your own. It also happened to coincide with what Dustless was thinking. Huey G's brows were filled with coldness and she did not appreciate it. In her opinion, Dustless and the red-clothed woman in front of her were jackals of the same tribe. They all coveted her power. Dustless's eyes flashed with displeasure and his expression turned gloomy. The strength of this mysterious invader was terrifying. In fact, he didn't want to join forces with Huey, but he had no choice. This woman was too terrifying. If he didn't join forces with Huey, it wasn't impossible for both of them to die here. Mother, the current situation is serious. Even if you ask a tiger for its skin, there is no way. If you fall into the hands of Uchiha Dustless, you will have a chance to make a comeback. If you fall into the hands of that woman, I am afraid that you will never be able to break out of the cage. Seeing that Huey was not interested in Dustless's proposal, Black Zetsu suggested tentatively, and at the same time changed the thread of discussion. You should know the ability of that woman. If you are swallowed by her, it means that you will completely enter the end. Even the immortal body can't escape her decay and erosion. Please think twice before you act. The immortal body is useless. What is the origin of that woman? His expression froze, and the mysterious red-clothed woman in front of him was labeled as more dangerous. From the tone of Black Zetsu, the immortal body of Huey could be easily annihilated. Black Zetsu's tone was hesitant, as if he was considering whether to tell the truth of the matter to Dustless. After pondering for a while, he said, she and Mother came from the same land. She was Mother's life and death enemy since 1,000 years ago. This woman's means are also extremely cruel. Don't look at her gentle face, she is extremely cruel. Thinking of the past, Black Zetsu's tone was full of fear and he said hoarsely, her ability is very strange. She can swallow everything. All creatures are nourishment for her to become stronger. Even Mother's immortal body can be swallowed. Black Zetsu's tone was trembling, obviously he wasn't lying. Making everything in the world into her own nourishment? Her means are really ruthless. No wonder she has such a terrifying murderous intent. Hearing this, Dustless's eyes solidified, and the murderous intent in his eyes was awe-inspiring. Hinata, Haruo, Conan, and the other girls were still fighting with the enemy in the shinobi world. If he let the tiger return to the mountain, it means that Haruo and the other girls will become her meal. Dustless will never allow this to happen. Even if we join forces, it's useless. This woman's means are extremely strange. Her ability is similar to yours. She can also ignore most of the physical attacks. Kagaya suddenly said, agreeing with Black Zetsu's previous suggestion. Although Black Zetsu's previous words were unpleasant, the reality was as he said. Falling into the hands of Dustless, they may be able to break out of the cage in the future. Being swallowed by this woman means the complete end. Not necessarily. Hearing that Kagaya chose to cooperate, Dustless breathed a sigh of relief. If this woman is arrogant to the end, there is no other way in the end except to die. It's good that she is immune to physical attacks, but we are not without means to subdue her. The corner of his mouth raised into a confident description. Dustless gave a feeling of extraordinarily bright, full of vitality, looking at the woman in red. His voice was resolute and decisive. We can use Rikudo, Chibaku Tensei to seal her. The power of Rikudo, Chibaku Tensei, used by Dustless and Kagaya together is self-evident. At the beginning, the Rikudo, Chibaku Tensei, used by Otsutsuki Himura and Otsutsuki Hagoromo could easily seal Kagaya. Now, Kagaya and Kuroto joined forces to use the Rikudo, Chibaku Tensei, can easily seal Kagaya. Kagaya's expression froze slightly, and only then did she realize that the kid in front of her, who is thousands of years younger than her, also has Rinnegan and Tensegan. It's not impossible to defeat the woman in red. Chapter 382. Dustless's expression was calm and his eyes were burning with fighting spirit. The depression in his heart turned into an endless fighting spirit. He was like an unsheathed divine sword that could destroy the world, cutting through all obstacles and sweeping through everything. The awe-inspiring fighting spirit soared into the sky, and even the air was being oppressed. Uchiha Dustless. Kagaya glanced at Dustless from the corner of her eyes, and a look of surprise flashed in her eyes. Facing such a desperate situation, Dustless could still maintain such a high fighting spirit, which really surprised her. First test her, then find a loophole and seal it. After staring at the woman in red for a while, Dustless whispered. Without waiting for Kagaya to react, his body flashed with golden light, and a straight divine rainbow whizzed out. When he reappeared, he was already behind the woman in red. The sword in his hand was sharp and ruthless, and it directly slashed towards the woman in red's head. Puchi. Dustless's expression was cold and his killing intent soared to the sky. He did not hesitate to ruthlessly destroy the woman. The beautiful figure was cruelly split into two, turning into a bloody mist and countless dark red blood beads. Little brother, you really don't know how to be gentle with a woman. I really hope to have a wonderful night with you. In the world where I live they all call me Mingyu Immortal Fairy. My real name is Emo Luyue. Her voice was filled with resentment and her tone was filled with endless charm. Accompanied by a burning fragrance, it poured into the heart of one's heart, and the meaning behind it made one's imagination run wild. The blood beads condensed again and Emo Luyue, who was intact, smiled. There was a sincere smile on her mouth, but Emo Luyue's methods were extremely ruthless. Her slender hand reached out of her sleeve, and a bloody mist floated out of her palm. It was filled with endless devouring power as if it wanted to swallow Dustless whole. Rabbit hair needle. Dense, sharp hairs surged out rapidly, heading straight for the red-robed woman's back. They were as sharp as needles, trying to pierce through Emo Luyue's body. She did not dare to ignore Huiji's existence. Although Emo Luyue had the ability to defeat Huiji, she did not dare to borrow Huiji's attack with her physical body. Huiji was not as strong as her, but she was also a monster who had reached the level of God. His blood-red eyes flashed with determination as his body exploded, turning into endless blood mist, easily dodging Hui's attack. Heaven's defense. Seeing this, Hui sneered. With a gentle wave of her hand, the world in front of her seemed to be forcibly pulled into a different time and space. A shocking change occurred. Blazing heat spread between heaven and earth. The void turned fiery red and boiling lava flowed on the ground. It had become a magma space. The scattered droplets of blood emitted a demonic light. Emo Luyue's figure condensed once again, bringing with it a chilling, killing intent. She clenched her jade-like hand into a fist and punched out without hesitation. Boom boom boom. As the seemingly ordinary punch landed, the space shattered and the void trembled. A long and narrow crack was blasted open in the horizon. The scattered fist force devoured everything. The power of the aftershock directly pierced through the rolling lava and turned the lava on the ground into nothingness. It was just a casual punch, but the area of destruction reached half the world. Huiji naturally hid in a different space to avoid the limelight. Seems like that strange move that ignores physical attacks is not invincible. She lifted her gaze and stared at the invincible Emo Luyue, who was looking down at Dustless. There was some hope in her hopeless eyes. Strong chakra waves erupted from her body as she rose from the ground. You are courting death. The murderous aura in Emo Luyue's blood-red eyes exploded. When Emo Luyue saw Wu Chen charging forward without any fear, a sinister look flashed across her pretty face. There was also a hint of doubt in her eyes. Wu Chen was charging over with his original body this time. He did not use the power of light. Don't worry, I will not kill you so early. I will beat you half to death and then devour you. Emoluiyue no longer pondered about the reason. Her expression was cold and her seemingly weak fist struck out. No matter what tricks Dustless and Huiji had up their sleeves, it was useless in the face of absolute power. Destructive fist waves rushed out, and the repaired space exploded again with a loud bang. It was extremely terrifying. Divine might. Looking at the destructive fist force calmly, Dustless smiled faintly. His body turned into a whirlpool and swallowed himself into a different space. He easily dodged the whistling fist wave. As the attack missed, the one who suffered was naturally the earth. Accompanied by a loud roar, the devastated earth once again burst open. A ravine that stretched for thousands of miles was clearly visible, dividing the entire world into two halves. Two ants from a remote village. They are not strong, but they have a lot of strange abilities. Seeing this, Emoluiue's expression was extremely gloomy. At this moment she was like a child with infinite strength. Dustless and Huiji were like slippery loaches that could avoid fatal attacks every time. However, after devouring the two of you, I will be able to use all of your strange abilities. Her dark face was full of joy like a blooming flower. It was extremely beautiful. Dustless's light ability was especially attractive to Emoluiyue. It was even more attractive than Huiji's 10-tailed beast. Suddenly, there was a strange energy fluctuation behind her. It was so weak that it was almost negligible. However, Emoluiyue, who had an extremely strong perception, still sensed that someone was ambushing her. The space cracked and a figure emerged from the dark ancient space. It was Huiji. I knew that the two of you would attack me from the front and back. What's the use of such a pedantic strategy in front of a god? Stupid. Sensing Huiji attacking from behind, Emoluiyue revealed a cold smile. At the same time, blood mist floated in her hand and condensed into a dark purple blood blade. How did you heal after being cut in half? I'm really looking forward to this scene. Emoluiyue smiled evilly. The moment Huiji came close, she turned around and the dark purple blood blade in her hand pierced through Huiji's body. Chapter 383. Emoluiyue's expression was cold. Huiji had been her archenemy for thousands of years. Of course, she held a disdainful and jealous attitude towards Huiji. She had relied on her own strength to cultivate bitterly, while Huiji had relied on external forces to obtain her strength. She had eaten the fruit of the divine tree to obtain godlike strength and was on par with Emoluiyue. Even gods had anger and Emoluiyue was no exception. At the same time, because of her special physique, as long as she devoured the enemy, she could obtain all the abilities of the other party. Emoluiyue, who was jealous of Kagaya's ability, began to invade the ninja world, and the war 1,000 years ago began. Kagaya, who relied on external forces to enter the realm of gods, was naturally not Emoluiyue's opponent and was suppressed. Kagaya had no choice but to use the infinite Tsukuyomi to resist Emoluiyue and her subordinates. 1,000 years of grievances and entanglements ends here. Seeing the purplish-red blade pierce through Huiji's body, Emoluiyue's lips curled up into a smile. Just as she was about to see how Huiji's body was repaired, her eyes widened as she stared at Emoluiyue in shock. The place where she was cut in half was only emitting a faint golden light. Her body did not split as expected. Instead, it healed as if Dustless used the elemental transformation ability. The only difference was that the ability that should have belonged to Dustless appeared on Kagaya's body. Not good. She was shocked as an unprecedented danger suddenly came. Her body was about to turn into blood mist again to be immune to physical attacks, but it was too late. The ferocious force had already sent her flying. When she swung her sword to attack Kagaya, it meant that she was slower by a beat and couldn't kill her instantly. This also meant that Emoluiyue was exposed to Kagaya's attack and had no time to dodge. 80 God's air attack. Thousands of fists, filled with Kagaya's anger, bombarded Emoluiyue's delicate body like a rainstorm. One could clearly see Emoluiyue's body being smashed into a bloody pulp. Kagaya seemed to feel that it was difficult to get rid of the monstrous hatred in her heart. Her expression was cold, and her pale face was surging with murderous intent like a demon. With a wave of her hand, tens of thousands of rays of light were released. As expected, it's a pretty good ability. That fellow is actually able to bestow his ability on me. feeling the warm light in her body. That special power made Huey unable to stop. Her face was filled with intoxication. The power of light was something that even gods couldn't control. Now that Dustless had given her this power, she would be letting herself down if she didn't savor it. Naturally, Mo Luoyue became the focus of Huey's attention. The ability to devour. Ripples appeared in the void and Dustless flew out. Chapter 384. Dustless looked at Marayu with an expressionless face, his heart filled with horror. The strength of this monstrous woman had no limit, and the vigorous and rapidly oppressive aura was clearly rising along with her anger. Their race is very strange. They can endlessly devour the lives of others and turn their abilities into their own. Marayu is a monster that has lived for thousands of years. In her long life of devouring, there must be many capable people who have been devoured by her, Kagaya explained in a deep voice. She knew Marayu far better than Dustless. Dustless nodded slightly. Being able to devour others, turn them into their own blood and possess their abilities, this kind of innate advantage was indeed unparalleled. It could even be said that she had the same ability as Dustless's system. No matter what, we must seal her. Dustless's expression was cold. Once he and Kagaya were defeated, it meant that the entire ninja world would become this woman's new blood. Dustless was not a saint and he did not have the heart of a saint. The life and death of people had nothing to do with him, but Dustless regarded Yu Luo, Conan and Hinata as his family. Dragons have reverse scales and those who touch them will die. Yu Luo and the others were Dustless's reverse scales. Seal me? Shameless boasting. Marayu laughed coldly, looking at Dustless with blazing eyes. The ability of light was too perfect. In the face of such an extraordinary being that could resist any heaven-defying ability in the world, no one could maintain a calm heart. Suddenly, a towering shadow covered the sky. Dark clouds covered the sun and the earth darkened. Looking up, it was Dustless and Kagaya's joint truth-seeking ball. Pouring chakra without holding back would inevitably lead to a change in quality. Dustless and Kagaya's joint truth-seeking ball was naturally extraordinary. The rapidly enlarging truth-seeking ball swallowed the world, destroying all things, and at the same time space was also being created. Naive. When Mo Luoyue saw this, she did not retreat. Instead she advanced. Ripples appeared in the void as a red figure shot out. A crimson blood blade condensed in her hand as she casually slashed out. The blood-red light was extremely strange and brutal. Along the way the space exploded. It was incomparably fragile and pulsated with a demonic luster. The moment it came into contact with the expanding truth-seeking jade, it emitted boundless light and directly swallowed the truth-seeking jade. I told you this kind of trick is useless. Mo Luoyue chuckled as she exhaled a cold breath. Just as she was about to say something to discourage Dustless and Huey, a thin figure suddenly appeared. Sorry, I didn't expect her to be of any use. Like a ghost, Dustless landed in the void several meters away from Mo Luoyue. At the same time he said to Huey in a voice that only the two of them could hear, I will find a way to force her back. You will ambush her from the back. When the time comes I will activate the power of Yang and you will activate the power of Yin to seal her with Chibaku Tensei. Dustless said with a flash of determination and a strange unnatural look in his eyes. You will force her back? Hearing this, Huey's eyes flashed with a strange look. Her tone was filled with doubt. She didn't think that Dustless had the strength to force Mo Luoyue back. There is no need to force yourself. Her gaze fell on Dustless's face. Seeing how determined he was, Huey didn't say anything else. She waved her hand and shattered the space, jumping in without hesitation. Son of a concubine, you think too highly of yourself with your own strength and at the same time, you look down on me too much. Since you've delivered yourself to my doorstep, then I'll accept your body with disrespect. Mo Luoyue's blood-red eyes flashed with a demonic luster as she stared greedily at Dustless's body. Her gem-like eyes stared at Dustless's body. As long as she devoured Dustless's body, she would be able to obtain everything about Dustless. Bring it on if you can. I promise I won't run or hide. The corners of Wu Chen's lips curled into a smile when he heard this. His calm and indifferent expression disappeared and was replaced by a look of ridicule. His bright and scorching eyes met Imolue's with a look of ridicule. Anyone could hear the provocation in his voice. You don't know what death is. Hearing this, Imolue's face fell. Her blood-red eyes were filled with anger. Gods were not to be provoked, especially a mortal like Dustless. Although she didn't like Huey, she was still on the same level as her. The Wuchen in front of him was merely a mortal. I will take everything from you. There is no use in running. Imolue sneered. A bone-piercing murderous aura seeped out of her body. She was obviously not joking. She moved like the wind and crossed layers of space in an instant. Even though it wasn't a beam of light, just the strength of her body moving forward was not inferior to Dustless's beam of light. In fact, it might even be better. In the blink of an eye, she arrived beside Dustless. See, I didn't run, did I? Seeing Missouri Luiwe close in on him, Dustless said with a smile. There was no trace of chakra either. In the depths of his eyes, there was a hint of slyness and viciousness. Obviously, Dustless had no intention of waiting for death. Are you scared out of your wits and give up resisting? Imolue frowned and stared at Dustless, who was so close to her. A sneer flashed across her eyes. Her Dustless was much stronger than her. It was normal for her to feel despair or be scared out of her wits. Moreover, at such a close distance, she didn't believe that Dustless had the means to subdue her. It was even more impossible for him to force her. However, even if you give up, I won't let you go. Her white hand approached Dustless. Endless gravitational force surged out, trying to swallow Dustless whole. Bam! Strangely, white smoke suddenly burst out from Dustless's body. Countless more strange figures emerged. Imolue's face turned ashen when she saw this. The veins on her forehead bulged. She wanted nothing more than to tear Dustless into pieces. However, she did not hesitate to dodge and kick him. Looking up, she saw a group of naked men chasing after Imolue. As expected. Fortunately, I had the foresight to learn this technique from Uzumaki Naruto in advance. Dustless's lips curled into a smug smile. It was as bright as the stars. He was used to being aloof. It was not impossible for him to be a little shameless. Chapter 385. At the back, Kagaya, who was waiting for the ambush, was stunned. She looked at Imolue, who was retreating, in several naked figures, and her face twitched fiercely. Shameless. With a snort, Kagaya retracted her gaze. Out of sight, out of mind. Her impression of Dustless dropped to negative. It's shameless, but it's very effective. Black Zetsu never thought that Dustless would use the legendary ultimate ninjutsu, seduction jutsu. The method was not complimentary, but the effect was unusually useful. As long as it was a woman, especially for ambitious gods like Kagaya and Imolue, who were extremely possessive, the way mortals looked at them was a kind of silent blasphemy. Not to mention being surrounded by a group of men who didn't even cover their bodies, it was worse than death. Dustless was also taking advantage of the mentality of these gods, who thought highly of themselves. If the other party was an ordinary female ninja with hundreds of battles of nerves, she would most likely choose to ignore them. Whoosh! A sharp sound broke through the air, and in the blink of an eye, a figure swept out. The speed was as fast as lightning, and it went straight to the back of Imolue. It was Kagaya. Although she scoffed at Dustless's method, at this moment, Imolue was full of flaws. Such a rare opportunity was fleeting, and there was no reason for her to let it go. She raised her lily-white hand slightly, revealing the pattern of the moon. How can I let you do as you wish? Sensing Kagaya's sneak attack, Imolue sneered. Strong energy fluctuations erupted from her body, turning into a super-strong hurricane that raged out. The naked men who came out of the seduction jutsu collapsed and were annihilated. The blade-like hurricane didn't intend to stop. Instead, it expanded and swallowed both Dustless and Kagaya, trying to stop the two's plan to surround her. Final struggle. Kagaya and Dustless's eyes flashed with indifference. Kagaya simply used Dustless's glint-glint fruit to ignore the blade storm that enveloped her body. The only difference was that Dustless, who lost the glint-glint fruit, was controlled by the red storm. Looks like your ceiling pincer attack plan has failed. A smile appeared on Imolue's face. She glanced at the temporarily suppressed Dustless, and a smug look appeared in her eyes. Her voice was much more relaxed than before. If I get rid of you first, that brat won't be able to hold the fort alone. You'll be in the bag. Hearing this, a rare faint smile appeared on Huey's indifferent face. She silently raised a finger and pointed behind Emoluiwe. The haggard figure was clearly visible. Seeing Huey looking at her with a smile that wasn't a smile, Emoluiwe's smile froze. She turned around suspiciously only to see that annoying smiling face. Her mouth couldn't help but twitch as her perfect face flushed red. Naturally, it was Dustless. What a shocking move. If it wasn't for Shinwei, I might have really been killed. Pretending to be fearful, Dustless said with a face full of fear. The smile on his face was natural, and it was obvious that he deliberately said that to disgust Emoluiwe. Staring at Emoluiwe, Dustless's expression was cold. He raised his right arm, revealing the image of the sun. Huey did the same and attacked Emoluiwe simultaneously. Chibaku Tensei. The cold voice resounded through the clouds. The two attributes of yin and yang merged together, and everything in the world was reenacted. The world stopped spinning and everything fell into confinement. In the void, countless mountain fragments appeared out of nowhere and circled around Dustless and Huey. Where there's room for mercy, there's room for mercy. I can swear that I'll never invade this world again. All of her power was imprisoned in an instant. She couldn't mobilize any energy even if she used all of her strength. Emoluiwe gritted her teeth and put on a pitiful look. She begged Dustless for mercy. As long as you let me go, I can agree to any condition. If I violate this oath, may the heavens and earth destroy me. See, even the arrogant Mingyu immortal fairy has such an ugly appearance? Huey mocked and ridiculed, looking at Emoluiwe with eyes full of disdain. Really? Dustless looked at Emoluiwe with a smile. Hesitation appeared on his face, as if he was hesitating whether to agree to Emoluiwe's condition. Are you crazy? Hearing this, Huey's expression changed drastically. She glared at Dustless and suddenly remembered the seduction technique that Dustless cultivated. She gritted her teeth and said, "You are indeed a man with poor taste. An ordinary man will always be an ordinary man. No matter how strong you are, you can't get rid of the human nature hidden in your bones." Huey's eyes flashed with sadness. Dustless was a man that she could barely accept. But now he was behaving like a hooligan. "Of course, I'm willing to do anything for you, including that kind of thing." She was afraid that Dustless wouldn't understand what she meant. Her face flushed red and her watery eyes were filled with endless charm. She was like a deadly poison. She breathed out and her fragrance spread in all directions. Every frown was soul-stirring and extremely enchanting. "How can I let you take away my chastity after so many years of slimming down? After deceiving you, I will first tear you into pieces." Malice appeared in the depths of Emoluiwe's eyes as she thought to herself. Her body moved even more vigorously, hoping to draw out Dustless's ugly nature. "Bastard!" Huey shouted angrily. She had been pure for many years and naturally didn't feel anything. But this sworn enemy of hers from 1,000 years ago didn't even flirt with her temporary ally in front of her and ignored her. How could Huey continue to remain calm? This was a covert attempt to smear her reputation. Chapter 386. The fragments of the mountain drifted in from all directions, and no creature could escape from the boundless gravitational force. The earth cracked as the fragments rushed toward the gravitational field created by Dustless and Huiweji. "Are you really so ruthless and heartless? You're worse than a beast." Emoluiwe's expression changed drastically as her heart was in turmoil. Her voice was filled with sorrow. An unprecedented god had actually fallen into the hands of two ants. This could be said to be the greatest irony. Even so, Emoluiwe still hadn't given up on survival. What made him even more speechless was that he hadn't expected that even after he had begged so humbly and was even willing to become a slave, Emoluiwe still wouldn't let him off. The man in front of her had an indifferent expression and seemed frivolous, but his heart was as cold as an iceberg. When a man is about to die, his words are kind. When a bird is about to die, its cry is sad. How can you be worse than a bird? Also, if I conceal you, I don't think it matters whether you're a beast or not. Dustless retorted with glib words, leaving Emoluiwe speechless. This was because Emoluiwe had vowed not to give up until she killed Dustless. Compared to Dustless, who had only sealed her, she was much more of a beast. This was also why Dustless could remain indifferent. I'm not just worse than a bird. Even if I die, I'll drag the two of you down with me so that we can meet in the underworld. A crazed look flashed across Emo Luyua's eyes as she tore away the facade of humility. Her body, which was under her control, began to emit a strange purple glow of blood. Her entire body shriveled up in an instant, like a candle flickering in the wind. Her hair turned white. Her body was pale and powerless, but there was an indescribable pressure that surrounded Dustless's mind. Ripples appeared in his calm heart as his hair stood on end. Could it be that this fellow is? Black Zetsu stared in horror at the purple blood mist emitting from Emolua's body. His panicked voice was filled with fear. Just as he was about to speak, he suddenly retreated. Even though his reaction was extremely fast, Black Zetsu's black liquid body was still corroded by the purple blood mist. Whoosh! The white figure retreated in a flash. Of course it was Kagaya. The Chibaku Tensei, that she had painstakingly created, also disintegrated in an instant. The mountain fragments that came from heaven and earth fell to the ground again. Old witch, what do you mean? Livid, Dustless glared at Huiji, his killing intent surging. Since Huiji had withdrawn without being pressed, Emo Luyue had also broken free from the seal. However, Emo Luyue still maintained a tired expression, giving off the impression of an old man with one foot in the grave. Dustless's heart, which had been in his throat, finally calmed down. Frowning, he suddenly realized that his body was surrounded by a purplish blood-red light. It was filled with an ominous aura. It was the aura that had seeped out from Emo Luyue's body. Just as he was about to ask Hui why she left, a painful scream resounded through the sky. Mother, save me! A tormented scream came from Black Zetsu's mouth. Dustless felt his scalp go numb when he heard it. If even an Iron Man like Black Zetsu couldn't withstand the torture, one could only imagine how terrifying it was. Looking up, Black Zetsu, which was composed of black liquid, had now turned purplish red. Is it because of the purple light from before? Seeing Black Zetsu's pained expression, Dustless's expression changed drastically. Recalling the scene of Black Zetsu being swallowed by the light, he retreated in an attempt to break free from the purple light. The ideal was beautiful, but the reality was cruel. These strange lights automatically followed and silently entered Dustless's body, no longer moving. It's useless, Black Zetsu. You should know what this is. Even I can't do anything about it. Huiji shook her head and decisively threw Black Zetsu out of her robes. Her eyes flashed with sadness. Although Black Zetsu was not born from her, it was created by the yin-yang escape. So painful. Black Zetsu, who had absorbed the purple light, turned purple like boiling water, horrifying. Those purple lights are all transformed from her pure energy. If it is eroded, not to mention you, even I will explode. Black Zetsu was still her child, Huiji said with regret. Bang! After struggling for a few seconds, Black Zetsu's body shone brightly, and then it exploded. It didn't heal like before and it didn't disappear. Damn old witch, you are ruthless. But do you think you can guarantee your safety by scheming against me like this? The corner of his mouth twitched violently. Dustless's murderous intent was awe-inspiring. His expression was gloomy, and he was aware of the sudden restless power in his body. He roared at Huiji, who was gloating. This insidious woman was obviously deliberately trapping Dustless. A man's words are kind when he is about to die. A bird's cry is sad when it is about to die. Dustless, you and I finally fought side by side. How can you be worse than a bird? Ignoring Dustless's malicious words, Huiji said with a smile, returning Dustless's previous words without missing a word. There was no need to be angry with Dustless, who was about to die. Emo Luyue was also ignored by Huiji. This terrifying move was equivalent to self-destruction. When Dustless died, she also disappeared. Damned old monster. Dustless's face was livid. He could feel the explosive power in his body, the unstoppable power like a volcano, and the violent fluctuations crushed his body tissues and organs. If it wasn't for the fact that he defeated the 6 Paths Obito in the system world and indirectly obtained the power of the 10 tails in his body, Dustless would have been annihilated by the impact. Because of the huge vitality of the 10 tails, his internal organs were healed when they were destroyed. This was also treating the symptoms but not the root cause. If he didn't deal with the violent power in his body sooner or later, he would be crushed to pieces by this terrifying power like Black Zetsu. Damn it, I only managed to drag one down with me. Looking at Huiji unwillingly, Emoluyu's eyes were full of disappointment. Her blood-red eyes were abnormally dim, giving people the feeling that her body was like a willow leaf blown by the wind. Such a terrifying move hurt both the enemy and herself. The power that Emoluyue had accumulated for thousands of years was converted into the power of self-destruction. The power was unimaginable. Once it exploded in Dustless's body, the consequences were self-evident. Could it be that I have stepped into the end of my life? Clenching his fists tightly, Dustless took a deep breath. His heart was filled with 100,000 alpacas. Since that strange energy could explode Black Zetsu, he who had gathered more purple light in his body couldn't be safe. The end result would be a complete corpse. While he was thinking, the purple light in his body surged like a stormy sea, turning into an endless impact that crushed his limbs and bones. If it wasn't for his strong physique, Dustless's body would have been torn apart in an instant. The burning pain spread to all his nerves. Dustless's expression was abnormally ugly. If he couldn't resist this agitation, he would follow in Black Zetsu's footsteps and disappear without a trace. Boom, boom, boom. Violent vibrations came from within his body. The purple light exploded and continuously attacked Dustless's internal organs, shattering them again and again. Roar, roar, roar. The scorching attack burned Dustless's rationality. Soon, Dustless's eyes turned scarlet. A low roar similar to the dying struggle of a beast came from Dustless's throat. Staring at Huey with murderous intent, Dustless lost his rationality and turned into a beast that only knew how to kill. As for Emoluyue, she had already exhausted her strength and died. In the desolate and strange world, only two figures were left standing, Dustless and Huey. Bastard, shouldn't she be exploding? This state is obviously similar to the simple rampaging of power that has lost control. Huey's face was gloomy. She thought that Dustless and Black Zetsu would end up the same, but the scene in front of her was unexpected. Dustless relied on his strong and solid body to temporarily support the rampaging power in his body. You can hold it for a while, but you can't hold it for a lifetime. I want to see what you can do. The heaviness on her face disappeared. Huey looked at Dustless playfully as if she saw the most interesting thing. A soul-stirring smile appeared on her iceberg face. She was as beautiful as a fairy, but no one could appreciate it. Fend for yourself, forgive me for not accompanying you. After looking at Dustless with pity for a while, Huey shook her head and said faintly. She waved her hand gently and the void in front of her exploded. She stepped into the dark space gracefully. The space gradually closed. Just as it was about to be completely sealed, a black figure invaded. Caw caw caw, the sound of a mirror shattering was suddenly heard. Huey, who was walking in the dark space, was stunned. She stopped in her tracks and turned around subconsciously. What she saw was Dustless with his scarlet eyes. Impossible, he tore the void with his bare hands. How? Bang. Before she finished her sentence, Huey's body was blasted out like a cannonball. The powerful force shook the heavens and the earth, and the entire dark space trembled violently. Caw caw caw. The blue sky exploded. A figure with long silver hair was thrown out of thin air. His body flew back for thousands of feet before he could stop. Huey's face was filled with disbelief as she stared at her sunken chest. Could this guy be controlling Maluyu's power? Huey's throat moved unconsciously. Her eyes were filled with shock and fear. Looking at the deep fist mark on her chest, she retreated instinctively. Dustless's body flew out of the dark space. With a wave of his hand, the space shattered. Dustless's scarlet eyes stared at Huey. His murderous intent spread out like tidal waves. In fact, it was the same as Huey's guess. Dustless was indeed controlling Maluyu's power temporarily. Of course, it could not be considered as complete control. The fact that it went berserk explained everything. Wuchen was only relying on his strong physical body to temporarily control the power of Maluyu. When he was exhausted, it would be the moment when he would be separated forever. Time was of the essence. He had to disperse the majestic power as soon as possible, and Huey was the most suitable target. There's something wrong with his eyes. Based on a woman's intuition, Huey instinctively felt that something was wrong. If Dustless was filled with murderous intent before, his eyes now had a different meaning. That kind of aggressive gaze contained the most primitive ambition of humans. Huey was not affected by worldly affairs, but it did not mean that she did not know what it meant. The purest and most direct possessiveness. Go to hell. Huey, who was shocked and furious, wanted to tear Dustless into pieces. The reincarnation Sharingan on her forehead released endless murderous intent. The mysterious Magatama rotated and twisted. The power of her eyes went wild and the world in front of her started to change. The unfamiliar world was empty and lifeless. It looked ordinary, but it was obviously different. Dustless and Huey's bodies seemed to be carrying millions of pounds of boulders. They fell to the ground and could not move. Dustless and Huey were the same. Without a doubt, this technique was the gravity space of the defense of heaven. Kill gray bones together. Two sharp bone spurs emerged from the palms of his hands, and pierced straight towards Wu Qin. Everything that came in contact with them would be annihilated in an instant. Wu! A strange sound came from the corner of his mouth, mocking Huey's powerlessness. Dustless shot out a blood mist from his hand and the bone blades collapsed in the blink of an eye. Freak! Seeing this, Huey cursed. Her hair danced and turned into countless sharp thorns. Just as she was about to pierce Dustless into a sieve, a black shadow completely ignored the existence of gravity and rushed over like lightning. He stretched out his hand and easily subdued Huey. You're courting death. Feeling that her white and tender hand was grabbed by Wu Qin, Kaguya became angry out of shame, and her chakra raged out like a flood, hoping to force Wu Qin to retreat in his berserk state. It's useless. My current state was created by you. Dustless returned to normal and said to Huey with a hoarse voice. However, his body was still trembling. It was obvious that he only regained his rationality temporarily. Let go of me or else you'll have to bear the consequences. Avoiding Dustless's gaze, Huey warned fiercely. Several truth-seeking jade floated behind her, indicating that she was not joking. How you treat me is your own business. But I'm in this state because of you. You have to help me solve it. Dustless said firmly, I don't want to die now, so I can only borrow your body to help me solve the problem. Although I'm sorry, I hope you can only blame yourself. Seeing that Huey was not tactful, Dustless said straightforwardly. I'm the goddess of Mao. How can I agree with you? Her eyes were filled with anger that could burn the world. Huey was extremely regretful. If she had told Dustless in advance, he would not have been swallowed by the power of Milieu and would not have gone berserk. She had shot herself in the foot. It's not up to you to choose. Your only mission now is to use the power of Yin to help me solve this restless power in my body. Dustless said expressionlessly. His meaning was simple and clear. To put it bluntly, it was a double excite. He didn't feel guilty at all. This was Huey G's own doing and she couldn't blame anyone else. Huey was about to refute Dustless when an energy wave came. Suddenly she felt cold. She did not know when she was exposed to the air. Dustless did not care about what Huey was thinking. He pounced on her. The restless energy wave in his body made him uncomfortable and almost made his body explode. He had to find a suitable person. Chapter 387. Time passed unknowingly and the Shinobi World War in the outside world also stopped. The Shinobi Allied forces and the White Zetsu army were all wiped out. Both Hinata and Cheyenne had Tensigan and Cheyenne and Conan as well as Red Lotus were extraordinary. Especially with the help of the corpses of the Hokage, a team of less than 10 people defeated the Shinobi Allied forces and the White Zetsu army in one fell swoop. Dustless in the different space naturally didn't know about this. At this moment his consciousness was half asleep and half awake, and he seemed to hear a slight sobbing sound. After an unknown period of time, Wu Qin, who was in a daze, finally woke up. Turning his head and staring at Kaguya with a delicate face beside him, Dustless's eyes were filled with a strange color. He seemed to think of something and the corner of his mouth twitched fiercely. He couldn't wait to slap himself in the face. Staring at the dazzling blood stains on the ground, Dustless knew that Kaguya, this big pit, will be his back from now on. But this old monster, she is quite beautiful. Looking at Huey G's delicate little face, Wu Qin couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. Her skin was like ice and her bones were like jade. She was like a peerless fairy who had fallen from the ninth heaven. Kaguya was a monster for thousands of years. Because of the body of the sacred tree, she was immortal and indestructible, and the years did not leave a trace on her body. More. As if sensing the gaze of others, Huey rubbed the corner of her pale eyes. Her entire body was weak. It was obvious that even though she was a divine tree, she couldn't withstand Wuchen's continuous attacks. After a long while, her bright eyes opened completely, revealing a little confusion and hesitation. Her gaze fell on Wuchen. Her expression was neither happy nor sad, and she didn't say anything. The words at the tip of his tongue were stuck. Wuchen originally wanted to curse out loud. If it wasn't for Huey Ji taking the opportunity to trick him, this situation wouldn't have happened. Later on, this kind of melodramatic thing wouldn't have happened. It was Kagaya's fault, but Dustless, after all, forcibly took her virginity, and he was not qualified to blame others. Kagaya looked at Dustless faintly, and her eyes were as calm as water. Then she retracted her gaze and waved her hand gently, and her body was wrapped in a simple robe. Thinking of Dustless's ferocious offensive, her eyes flashed with anger. "You'd better not tell anyone about this, otherwise." The majestic murderous aura overflowed out of her body, and Kagaya warned him sternly. From her expression, it was not difficult to see that if she was not afraid of Dustless's strength, she would definitely be prepared to fight to the death. In fact, Huey's heart was extremely conflicted. Even if her strength was really comparable to Dustless, she might not be able to raise her butcher's knife when facing him again. "You can let bygones be bygones, but I have something to say. There are some things that must be agreed upon in advance." Staring at Kagaya, Dustless said. His tone was quite soft, but it was unusually firm, and there was no room for disobedience. His tone was resolute and unshakable. Hearing this, Kagaya's face was livid, and she stared at Dustless with uncertainty. The surging murderous aura broke out of her body like a tide. She didn't expect Dustless to be so insatiable. She didn't haggle over every little thing, but Dustless took advantage of her. "Don't show an angry expression. Your ambition has not been terminated, and it's normal for me to be worried about you." Looking into Kagaya's eyes, Dustless said bluntly. His tone was direct, and he was too lazy to hide it. Even if he had such a relationship with Kagaya, Dustless did not let down his guard and would not let Kagaya do whatever she wanted. Shameless. Clenching her teeth, Kagaya glared at Dustless. Looking at Dustless's calm face, a strange light flashed in her eyes. Her tone was as cold as a mountain as she said sarcastically, "I am a supreme existence above thousands of creatures. Why would I need to live under someone else's roof? You don't have the right to choose." Looking at Kagaya with a smile, Dustless said softly, "No matter what happened before, you are just a canary in my cage. And just now the double, cough cough, you seem to have gotten a lot stronger." Embarrassment flashed in his eyes. Dustless, who wanted to directly talk about dual cultivation, hurriedly changed the topic and said to Kagaya in a daze. The corner of Kagaya's mouth twitched fiercely, and she glared at Dustless with a piercing gaze. Her indifferent face was like a hoodlum's at this moment, and it was especially annoying. Being a status is similar to being a little girl in bed. Of course, there is an essential difference. Her words almost made Kagaya vomit blood. She didn't remember that she wanted to rely on Dustless. Especially Dustless, her mortal enemy, took her most important thing. She couldn't wait to tear him into pieces. Of course, it's not without benefits. Looking at Kagaya, a strange light flashed in his eyes. Dustless said faintly, "I can allow you to get the chakra of everyone in the world except my wife and my subordinates. War is cruel, and it's difficult to describe it with words. The injured are often the lowest level of civilians. The casualties are countless. Many ninjas, including the 5 Kages, were seriously injured by the ninjas reincarnated by Kabuto. The shinobi world was full of corpses. With Dustless's permission, Kagaya didn't hesitate to reunite the scattered chakra of the world, and her strength increased sharply. She finally felt a little grateful to Dustless. As Madara said before, chakra is the source of the world's turmoil. Without this superhuman power, the world is unusually stable. Although fights happen from time to time and bloodshed is constant, it's much more peaceful than before. It's time to leave. Stimulated by Marayuki, Dustless's heart was not limited to this world, and his eyes looked at the world outside the universe where the world was brighter. People's curiosity is endless, and Dustless is also full of yearning for the mysterious outer space. As for Kagaya, Haruo, and other women, Dustless naturally took them all, including Dreamy May and Tsunade Senju. They were all seriously injured in the war, and the two of them were inextricably linked to Dustless. Of course, all of them were sealed in the system's space. Chapter 388. Luxurious and quiet. In a luxurious villa inlaid with all kinds of shining gems, on a soft, furry bed, there was a pale, black-haired teenager. This person has a handsome face, delicate facial features and sharp edges. The only difference is that the young man's dress is not flattering. It looks a bit nondescript and weird. However, this strange dress is enough to make all human beings fear and look up. It hurts. After a long time, the black-haired teenager opened his eyes and stared at the luxurious ceiling. He opened his mouth and a stab of pain poured into his mind. The teenager's face was pale. A huge amount of information invaded his mind and turned into a real picture reflected in his pupils. Royce South Saint. What kind of idiotic name is this? The voice of surprise and doubt resounded through the empty villa. Anyone could hear the astonishment in the tone and subconsciously looked at the clothes he put on. Sure enough, it's a celestial dragon. After about a while, the teenager's mouth raised a bitter smile. He was speechless and immediately understood which world he had come to. Dustless, there is no need to complain. Although this identity is notorious, the privileges are envied by others. In his mind, the dissatisfied voice of System Ling, spread, scolding Dustless for not knowing what was good for him. The identity of a celestial dragon in this world is equivalent to the existence of nuclear weapons. Not to mention ordinary civilians, even the kings of some countries and even the admirals of the navy, are afraid of the celestial dragon. Forget it, this problem is not important, but... Dustless rubbed his temples, feeling rather conflicted. Then he said speechlessly, I didn't expect the Lois family to be so tragic. Their members are so thin that they are almost extinct. Now I'm the only one left. Through the memories in his mind, Dustless knew that he was the last child of this Royce family. As a descendant of 20 kings, the identity of a celestial dragon can be imagined. However, the Royce family, which has a history of hundreds of years, is now only supported by Dustless alone. The rest of the family members have all died out. Now Dustless's identity is also a 16 or 17-year-old teenager. Of course, Dustless's appearance has not changed at this stage. There's also a fiancé that I've never met. Dustless's expression froze as he delved deeper into his memory. His body twitched a few times, and he could not help but think of the ferocious-looking fat woman who wore a bubble mask and had a big fat belly. His entire body began to tremble uncontrollably. This is interesting. I didn't expect that the celestial dragons, who are called the biggest garbage by human beings, also have a different kind of existence. The corners of his mouth raised slightly, and his face showed a surprised expression. Dustless said with a little surprise. Celestial dragons were also synonymous with trash in his eyes, but the special information in his mind made Dustless frown. There seemed to be something wrong with this world as well. It was definitely not as simple as it seemed on the surface. Who would have thought that my deceased father was actually a great general? Dustless's calm face was heavy and his tone was slightly doubtful. Not only his deceased father, but even some of his so-called relatives had extraordinary strength. It was the opposite of the garbage that had no strength to truss a chicken. On second thought, Dustless was relieved. As the saying goes, one pole can't kill a group of people. Celestial dragons were indeed garbage, but there were also extraordinary different kinds of existence, such as people like Doflamingo. It seems that celestial dragons still have many unknown secrets, and there are things that the world government is afraid of. After about a long while, Dustless secretly speculated. The status of celestial dragons was higher than the Gorosei. If the identity of the descendant of the creator alone made the world government submit for hundreds of years, it would be unreasonable. The celestial dragons claim to be gods. Naturally, there are some unknown secrets. The 5 elder stars are also ambitious people. If the celestial dragons are a group of wine sacks, how can they bow their heads and be willing to be at the disposal of the celestial dragons? The light voice spread out, and the person who spoke was the System Ling. She continued, "This world is very mysterious. You have to be careful. The 20 kings unified the world 800 years ago, and it was not just by talking. Whether it is the world government, marine headquarters, or even the entire human race, They are extremely disgusted with celestial dragons because they have absolute privileges above all creatures. If someone attacks celestial dragons, a marine admiral will come out. So what? Creak. Walking to the window and pushing it open, the cool evening breeze immediately came out. Dustless walked to the balcony and quietly looked down at the Holy Land Mariehua under the night view. The giant building in front is the residence of the Gorosei 5 Elder Stars, the world's highest power. The evening wind blew his hair messy like grass. If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. If people offend me, I will pay them back 100 times. The voice of the ancient well spread out, staring at the castle-like building in the distance. Dustless said very plainly. He was not interested in the secrets of celestial dragons, including the Mariehua national treasure, that is enough to shock the world. Living behind the scenes and turning the world upside down, this is barely the only pleasure of Dustless. Royce South Saint, it's time for dinner. A voice of fear and horror sounded from the room. Dustless was slightly stunned and turned his head. What came into his eyes was a young girl. She was delicate and pretty, but her watery eyes were full of fear. She didn't even dare to raise her head, and there was a black special shackle around her neck. Obviously she is Dustless's slave. Kid, what's your name? Turning his head and continuing to look at the waves in the distance, Dustless asked curiously. The girl he met for the first time had a feeling of déjà vu. My name is Boya Hancock. Lowering her head, she didn't dare to look at Dustless's back. She suppressed the fear in her heart and lowered her voice. The laws that punish mortals have no effect on celestial dragons who are gods. Chapter 389. Hearing this, Dustless's eyes flashed with understanding, the corners of his mouth raised slightly, and he looked at Boa Hancock with interest, his eyes as sharp as an eagle's. After a moment of silence, Dustless's eyes dimmed. The future empress was now just a mortal, and there was nothing worthy of Dustless's attention. To put it bluntly, she was just an ant. In Dustless's words, she was extremely mediocre without any bright spots. Even if she had eaten the devil fruit now, Dustless did not see anything special. Just glancing at Boa Hancock, Dustless left straight away, ignoring her. The room was brightly lit, the slender mahogany table was filled with all kinds of delicacies, and there were countless dazzling dishes. Staring at the dazzling array of food and delicacies, Dustless also had a big appetite for a while. When he was about to open his stomach to eat and drink, the roaring sound resounded through the sky. Boom, boom, boom. Under the cover of the dark night, the serene Mariehua burst into flames, the earth shook, and the aftermath spread to a wider area than ever before. Flames of hundreds of feet rose in the air, and the quiet void instantly turned fiery, burning unscrupulously. The temperature of the void increased by dozens of times, melting all the buildings into a solution. Just after the blink of an eye, the shouts of killing connected together. This is interesting. After swallowing the food that was sent to his mouth, the majestic perceptions spread out, and he noticed that there were suddenly many rioting slaves in the usually quiet Mariehua. He frowned, and doubts inevitably rose in his heart. So that's how it is it the date 16 years ago when Mariehua was invaded? With a strange smile at the corner of his mouth, Dustless wiped his hands and a look of enlightenment flashed in his eyes. The only person who invaded Mariehua in the world was the master of the Murlocs, Fisher Tiger. He is quite bold to dare to invade Mariehua. His fingers gently tapped on the long mahogany table, making a rhythmic sound. Dustless directly took a nap, turning a deaf ear to the outside disturbance, and the thoughts in his mind began to turn. How can a clown have the ability to invade Mariehua, but a half-baked person with a bounty of more than 200 million berries? Even if he once knew Mariehua, it is impossible for him to have the ability to invade. When he opened his eyes again, Dustless was full of doubts. A criminal with a bounty of about 200 million berries, his strength is only about the level of an ordinary Marine Vice Admiral, and even worse than a Vice Admiral in Marine. There is something strange, there must be a conspiracy. There was a strange color in his eyes, and Dustless's heart was splashed with ripples. He remembered that Tiger's bounty was 230 million berries, which was the bounty after he successfully liberated the slaves. Now he is just an unknown character who has not yet been offered a bounty. Even if he has the strength comparable to a Marine Vice Admiral, it is not justifiable for Mariehua to be invaded so simply. Bang bang bang. When Dustless was thinking about it, a rush of footsteps suddenly came from the dark corridor. Looking up, several big men in black suits hurried over. They could not wait to surround and protect Dustless. Louis South, Saint, Mariehua has been invaded, we will escort you away now. The man in sunglasses, who was obviously the leader of this group of people, said with eagerness, and even Dustless did not speak and directly dragged him away. Where are you taking me? Have other Tenryubito also been taken? With an indifferent look, Dustless's voice was magnetic, not as grumpy as other Tenryubito, not knowing etiquette, and giving people the feeling that it was more like a casual conversation between friends. Several big men were stunned. The arrogance and unreasonableness of Tenryubito was known all over the world. The man in front of them was surprisingly calm and gave people a very amiable feeling. Yes, Louis South, Saint. Many other Tenryubito were also secretly protected. The slaves who broke out of the prison slaughtered Tenryubito wantonly. The man in the suit with glasses said, these slaves were oppressed all year round, and their hatred for Tenryubito was self-evident. Once they were liberated, they would inevitably fight against Tenryubito. Is it? Hearing this, Wu Chen's face flashed with a cold light and a glaring killing intent swept out. A tyrannical repulsive force broke out from his body, and the black-clothed men who clustered around Wu Chen were instantly sent flying. Their bones were broken, their internal organs were dislocated, their eyes were dim, they lost their luster and they were dying. They looked at Dustless incredulously. It's funny, don't you think so? Sitting back again, Dustless looked at the half-dead people lying on the ground, and the corners of his mouth raised, showing a contemptuous smile. Mariehua is really the darkest place, and the strategy of killing with a borrowed knife is a set of tricks. Louis South, Saint, what are you talking about? We don't understand what you mean. A group of big men with sunglasses looked at Dustless in confusion, and even the repulsion that Dustless exerted was out of the sky, and they looked at Dustless with puzzled doubts. Don't understand? That's natural. Sitting down leisurely, Wu Chen once again enjoyed his wine and delicacies. He ignored the existence of these people and said, if you guys knew the inside story, perhaps your heads would have been separated from your body. Of course, it is precisely because you will never understand the reason that you are destined to be a worm crawling at the bottom for the rest of your life. After that, Dustless did not wait for several people to react, and his whole body surged with repulsion, and all the matter centered on himself was annihilated and collapsed, turning into dust and disappearing. With Fisher Tiger's strength, even if he used to be a slave of Tenryubito and is familiar with the geographical structure of Mariehua, he has no ability to invade the Holy Land. He is still too far away. There must be a secret existence that no one knows. Chapter 390. At noon night the whole world was peaceful. Only the center of power in the world, Mariehua, was playing out another cruel scene at this moment. The released slaves raised their butcher's knife to the celestial dragons. After several years of oppression, they had already lost their minds. The only thing they wanted to do was to kill these celestial dragons who tortured them all day long to vent their hatred. This is interesting. Years of oppression have made you crazy enough to forget where this is. On the balcony, Dustless looked down at the chaotic field below and tasted the red liquid in the wine glass. The celestial dragons were obviously not as good as these slaves. Even if there were people in the government protecting these vermin, there were celestial dragons lying in a pool of blood. In the room where Dustless was, the smell of blood was overwhelming. Looking back, many broken limbs were clearly visible and their pupils were frightened and dazed. It was obvious that they were cruelly dismembered on the spot without even reacting. It was not difficult to see from the shocked eyes that they did not believe that the celestial dragons in front of them, who were called the biggest garbage by human beings, had such terrifying strength that they could kill them with a wave of his hand. They did not even have time to react or defend. Pulgar. A bloody light flashed in his eyes. Wu Chen resolutely turned around and walked into the room. Human nature was fickle and the world was fickle. He was not so bored to save those so-called people of the same race. Bang bang bang. The sound of hurried and messy footsteps came again. Dustless frowned and the murderous aura flashed away. He suddenly raised his arm and went straight to the dark corridor in front of him. Chakra surged and an unparalleled repulsive force came out of the palm of his hand. Boom! The murderous slave was suddenly torn apart, and his body burst like a water ball. Dustless's face gradually became cold. These slaves came one after another endlessly. In less than a quarter of an hour he had killed dozens of them. Killing with a borrowed knife, it's a good plan. Looking far away and staring at the beautiful building outside the window, Dustless said with admiration. The people who lived there were the highest power in the world. The 5 Elder Stars. What is Marihoa? The home of Tenryubito, the residence of the Gorosei 5 Elder Stars, and the location of the Commander-in-Chief of the world government, including the headquarters of many intelligence departments such as CP0 CP9, are all in Mariehua, which can be said to be a gathering of strong people. It was outrageous that a mere fisher tiger had made such a mess of Mariehua. Killing with a borrowed knife? Don't tell me you suspect that the 5 honored stars did this on purpose. A light voice sounded in his mind. Naturally, it was Ling-Er, the consciousness of the system, doubting Dustless's guess. I'm not sure about this. Although I'm just guessing, in terms of ability, Tiger has no ability to invade Mariehua at all. Even if he has been a slave for a few years and knows Mariehua like the back of his hand, he does not have this ability. Shaking his head, Dustless said with some hesitation. There are countless strong people in Mariehua, more than the strong people in Marine headquarters, and their strength is also better. Not to mention Fisher Tiger, even if the Pirate King Roger and Whitebeard join forces to attack Mariehua, they may be besieged to death. After all, the Gorosei 5 Elder Stars, and the Commander-in-Chief of the army as well as the strong people of CP0 CP9 are all here. To some extent, the incident of this raid is like a deliberate move, deliberately opening the road for Fisher Tiger to easily invade Mariehua. Mariehua is the center of the world's power and its defense can be imagined. The probability of Tiger, who is only at the Vice Admiral level, invading is 0. Is it really okay for us to do this? It's tantamount to slapping our own face. Tomorrow the news of Mariehua being invaded will spread all over the world and it will be talked about again. In the brightly lit room, 5 figures with different expressions were clearly visible, and the one who spoke was a bald old man with a long sword in his hand and glasses. This person gives people an extremely awe-inspiring feeling, even if it's just a look, there is an invincible sharpness. That's the only way. The plan has been implemented. Anyway, we have lost a lot of face over the years. If we can clear some garbage, it can be regarded as a benefit to all mankind. The old man with a little red skin and neat blonde hair said with a tone of indifference. It was worth it to kill some garbage to purify the air. This has nothing to do with us. The old man with long white hair and a long beard shook the coffee cup in his hand and said, Fishman Tiger was originally a slave of those guys. He escaped by chance a few years ago. Now it's reasonable for him to go back and retaliate against Tenryubito. Even if Tenryubito accuses us, he can't say anything to us. The crime of dereliction of duty is a fact. The group of people who let Tiger sneak in deliberately will be secretly removed so that there will be no evidence, and by the way, the whole crime will be pushed to the Fishman Island. The old man with a sword who spoke first said with a murderous aura. His whole person was full of a cold death aura. The meaning revealed in his words was that he couldn't wait to tear Tenryubito into pieces. In fact, the relationship between Tenryubito and the 5 Elder Stars was not so harmonious. The 5 Elder Stars did not belong to Tenryubito, but they were subject to the supreme orders of Tenryubito. As the concentration of the highest power in the world, the 5 of them listened to the orders of a group of good-for-nothings, which was the biggest insult. Tenryubito relied on the identity of the descendant of the creator, to act recklessly, lawlessly, and buy and sell slaves in broad daylight. It could be said that they were the biggest source of turmoil in the world. However, for some special reason they couldn't do anything to these garbage. They were really unwilling. Now that Tiger was willing to take the initiative to attack, they, the 5 Elder Stars, were naturally willing to help Tiger realize his beautiful wish. Since they couldn't do it openly, they could only stab a knife in the dark. Anyway, all the blame would be borne by Tiger and the fishmen he brought. Chapter 391. It is also human nature for the Gorosei 5 Elder Stars to hate Tenryubito so much. When they preach the justice of the world, they still shelter the most vicious people, Tenryubito. This is tantamount to slapping their own face. This can't be helped. That group of people has a rich background and is not as simple as it seems. We can only use this method to vent our anger for the time being. Wearing a black suit, white curly hair and a flat hat, the old man with a scar on the left side of his face said with a complicated melancholy in his tone. His dry face had a helpless smile, and it seemed that he was trying to find joy in the bitterness. Tenryubito is not as simple as it seems. It has been passed down for more than 800 years and has a rich heritage. For countless years, it is not that no one has tried to take advantage of them, but in the end they all failed. For more than 800 years, Tenryubito is by no means as useless as the world thinks. Even the status of the 5 of them is not as good as the former. They are the biggest bugs, much more abominable than the ferocious pirates. They are unscrupulous in the cloak of justice and they are lawless when they fight. The old man with the sword snorted, and the murderous look in his eyes was abnormal. If the pirates do evil, no one dares to say anything about the Tenryubito who claims to be God killing people and arson. There is no other reason because Tenryubito has privileges. Mariehua's fire was monstrous, the smell of blood was lingering, and the black smoke was nearly 10 feet high, full of despair, giving people a suffocating feeling of purgatory on earth. Those Tenryubito who are secretly controlled by the world government, I am afraid that they will be quietly disposed of, sad. Looking indifferently at the distant void, Wu Qin murmured to himself without any ripples. This was also the price of their tyrannical life. There was a cause and there was an effect. There was no reason to let it go like this. The means of the Gorosei 5 elder stars are extremely ruthless. They dare to plot against their master. In his mind the system consciousness lingers. Judging from various factors, Tiger does not have the strength to invade Mariehua. Mariehua has countless strong people and Tiger is just a chestnut in the sea. The Gorosei are all powerful and ambitious people, and they have the world government and many departments such as a powerful organization like the Marine. They are willing to be the dogs of the celestial dragons. Shaking his head, Dustless concluded that people's ambition grows with the expansion of strength. No one wants to be inferior to others. Whether it is accidental or inevitable, it shows that the Gorosei is ambitious and unwilling to be inferior to the celestial dragons. They have guts. How dare they steal from me? Dustless's words were suddenly stuck in his throat as he changed the topic. His cold eyes stared into the depths of the darkness as a cold smile appeared on his face. The powerful eye power in his eye sockets exploded, rapidly oppressing. Looking up, Dustless was covered in frost as he walked expressionlessly into the dark space. In the dark and silent space, a few blurry figures moved nimbly. These monsters were different from humans. They were ugly and unbearable to look at. Some of them even had more than a dozen arms. Little girl, I will unlock the shackles for you. From now on, you are free and no longer a slave of the celestial dragons. The burly red-skinned man revealed a kind smile. He looked at the chain that he had taken from the girl's head, and a trace of hatred flashed in his eyes. With a powerful shake, he directly shattered the chain into lime-like fragments. Looking closely, the girl who was rescued was the later famous Empress, Boa Hancock. Boss Tiger, there seems to be something wrong here. Looking at the dark red blood stains under his feet, the blue-skinned monster frowned and said with a heavy tone of depression and puzzlement. The dark corridor in front of him smelled of blood, and the blood under his feet came from there. Jimby, it's really wrong. The people who died here seemed to be slaves who were released before. After a long silence, Tiger said heavily. His heart sank. As everyone knew, celestial dragons were trash without the strength to truss up a chicken, and most of the slaves were powerhouses with strong physiques. Slaughtering celestial dragons was a piece of cake. Let's leave here first. I'm afraid the government sent strong people to do this. Only their minions have this strength. With a sigh, although he was unwilling, there were still a large number of slaves who had not been rescued. Tiger could only choose to leave. It was luck to be able to invade Mariehua. Mariehua is the nest of the world government. No matter how negligent the defense is, it can't be invaded, so Tiger can only plan himself as a lucky person. Go? I actually thought that you guys would be able to leave. An indifferent voice suddenly resounded in the empty hall. The abrupt voice was extremely soft and lazy, as if mocking Tiger and the others for overestimating themselves. In short, there was a kind of silent ridicule. "Who is it? Get out of here, don't pretend to be a ghost." After a while, seeing that no one had appeared, the shark-faced young man couldn't help but roar angrily. "Arlong, shut up." Jinbi glared at Arlong with dissatisfaction, and the irritation on his face disappeared in a flash. He nervously observed the wind and grass around him. The enemy hidden in the dark was the most dangerous. Strange. That seems to be the voice of Lois South, sage. The future empress was full of doubts. She tilted her head and shook her head after a moment of contemplation. The celestial dragons were all fat and incompetent idiots in the eyes of the world. The previous unfathomable voice could not be a celestial dragon. They did not have that ability. Boom! A gorgeous golden light fell from the sky, piercing the roof and forming a big hole. Countless photons gathered and drilled in, floating like fireflies. This strange scene made all the fishmen stunned, and they looked at each other. Suddenly, the light quickly gathered and condensed, and a vague figure formed. Chapter 392. Warm photons wandered in the dark space. The hall was full of light, and the bright luster turned the night into day. The Murlocs present looked at the figure floating in the air. Ability user. Tiger's face was gloomy. He clenched his fist and subconsciously covered his eyes with his hand. The burning flash was as dazzling as the sun, making him unable to open his eyes. "Is this the Shining Man?" Through the tiny gap between his fingers, Tiger widened his eyes and looked incredulously at the figure condensed in the air. The flashing light was like a miniature sun. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was the Shining Man. Under everyone's surprised gaze, the figure slowly formed. Celestial Dragon. Staring at the strange dress, the fishman Arlong exclaimed. This kind of special dress, only the celestial dragons in the world would wear it and swagger through the streets. So it was also one of the symbols of celestial dragons. After a short time, the face of the visitor finally flashed. He stood casually in the sky, his deep eyes were as bright as stars, and his messy hair was dancing with the wind. His face was white, his facial features were angular, his body was thin, and his dry and cracked mouth was slightly raised, revealing a faint smile. "Is this guy really a celestial dragon?" Jinbi, who recovered from his shock, looked sluggish with some doubt. The celestial dragons all had pig waists and fat faces, especially the males. They were all like this. One must know that celestial dragons were synonymous with god-level ugly men. The celestial dragon in front of him was the complete opposite. It was fundamentally different from those useless garbage. A celestial dragon that could shine like the sun and even float strangely in the air was unheard of and unheard of. Lois Nan, St. Boa Hancock, who was nearly 15 or 16 years old, trembled. Her face was pale and her quiet eyes were filled with fear. She said the true identity of Dustless. Sure enough, it was a celestial dragon. Tiger and others looked at each other and their eyes were relaxed. The celestial dragon ate the devil fruit not to fight but to have fun. It's a pity, the devil fruit that can be eaten by the celestial dragon is certainly not an ordinary thing. Tiger's eyes flashed with a touch of sadness. If it was an unknown fruit, celestial dragons would generally let the slaves they bought eat it. The devil fruit in front of them could float in the air, and the golden light just now showed that it was not an ordinary thing. The good fruit is eaten by the pig. The young and vigorous fishman Along took a step forward and hooked his thumb at Wu Chen. He said contemptuously, "Boy, since you've seen our true faces, you'll definitely die. Do you want to kill yourself or let me help you dismember your body?" An arrogant voice, Arlong sneered. The reason why celestial dragons can be arrogant is because of the protection of the Marine Admiral. Without it, they are just the most incompetent waste. At least Arlong and Tiger as well as other people think so. Without the protection of the Marine, celestial dragons will become sheep waiting to be slaughtered. However, Dustless's eyes directly ignored the arrogant Arlong. His indifferent eyes fell on Boa Hancock's face. He pointed to her and said with a smile, "You are bold enough. Although I don't care about a slave, but if I let you take her away like this, where will my face go? Why don't you leave one of you to save my face in exchange for her life?" The indifferent pupils were replaced by a playful color. Dustless's face was full of ridicule. He didn't feel anything special about the so-called Empress. Trash dares to talk big, why don't you come down and die? Arlong's face was ferocious. Dustless's direct ignoring of him had aroused his anger. Now this celestial dragon waste dared to speak arrogantly, which completely angered him. Countless blood vessels gushed out of his frightening eyes, and the strength of his whole body was operating to the limit. His pupils stared at Dustless, and his legs were slightly bent down to continue his strength. Worthy of being a fishman, this power is really not a cover. Dustless nodded slightly and then also pointed at Arlong on the ground with his finger, full of provocation, contemptuous eyes looking at the trash not worth mentioning. Tear you apart, whiz. An angry roar fell, accompanied by a boom sound. The floor under Arlong's feet also shattered into foam, and his strong body rose from the ground and roared like a cannonball. The corner of his mouth opened and a fishy smell came out, revealing Sawtooth full of fangs, jumping with cold light. It was not difficult to see that he was going to completely tear Dustless to pieces. There is a road to heaven but you don't take it, there is no door to hell but you throw yourself into it. Lifting his right foot gently, Wuchen shook his head hopelessly as he looked at Arlong who was galloping towards him. His expression was cold and dull. The light on his leg gathered and after a while, it turned into a dazzling pure gold. A lazy voice resounded in the dark hall. Speed is weight. Have you ever been kicked at the speed of light? It seems that I asked superfluous questions. It is an honor for clowns like you to enjoy the taste of light. As the voice fell, Dustless's golden leg also fell mercilessly. Boom, 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 the figure that jumped into the air was cruelly suppressed. He was directly kicked down by Dustless and heavily smashed into the ground. The valiant force directly caused the entire floor to burst open, forming an incomparably huge deep pit. Arlong, who was burnt all over, was lying in it without any breath. Arlong. Seeing this, Tiger's eyes were about to crack, and his huge iron fist was clenched tightly. Fishmen valued easy things and the passionate him valued the bond between them even more. Idiot, instead of worrying about him, you should worry about your own situation. A ghostly voice resounded behind him. Tiger's pupils widened, and his whole body was cold. He suddenly looked back and saw Dustless with a strange smile on his face. Of course, there was also his shining finger. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.